5:04 on July 10th. Need a motion to accept the minutes from June 6th. Anybody? And second? Second. Minutes are accepted. Next meeting will be August 7th, 5 PM. Yes? All right, good, great. We got a number of letters. 1, 2, 3, the first 4 were with regard to comments on the Prager dock application from Hockman, Brennan, Reedon, and Ayeta. And we had a letter or correspondence from Pan Demarest on the Rams Head Inn application.
When did that letter come?
About 10 minutes ago.
Oh,
I don't know, I'm kidding, within the last 2 hours.
Oh, all right, then, yeah.
Right, am I accurate?
I didn't see,
Yeah, it's already on here.
Am I right about that?
I didn't even see it, so it must have see it.
A couple hours.
Yeah, recent.
I'm pretty sure there was other letters back at the 78 Peconic.
There was a couple of them I read on
Well,
the
you
emails.
got 4 listed here. I think there's more than
I
that?
think there were.
There's 6 on 78 Peconic.
Yeah, Phil, there were more.
Right.
There were a lot of letters.
So one of the problems is we're getting mail from, or emails from residents directly to the WMAC, not including the town board or the town clerk. So I have to make sure, I thought I had got them all, that they get forwarded. So maybe I missed some, I don't know how they were addressed, but there are letters being distributed that aren't going to the town board or the town clerk, so they're hard to track.
Seeing Lane on the list. And
Okay.
let's see what this is. And then we have
Brennan,
And,
I think. Reardon.
Tran and Austin.
Brennan's here.
Tran and Austin.
Is that one letter or?
That's one letter.
Yeah, TRAN, right?
And then
Yes.
there was a doctor or something lived on North Silver Beach Road too, I think.
That's
Let's see
Ayeta.
if I can find it.
It's on here.
Yeah, okay, all right.
So we'll make sure the town board gets all of those.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so there were 7 letters with concerns regarding the Prager dock.
5, 6, I have 6. And
1,
the
2,
7th is.
4 plus Lane, Tran, and Austin.
Well, I'm sorry, Tran and Austin are 1.
That's 6. I had this off, sorry. What, Tran and Austin were the same thing?
Yeah,
I'm the same person?
Oh, these are the same. Oh.
same household.
Same household. And we don't know where Jim is
Jim was out, he was.
on his way. Do you have a briefing for us?
I do.
Okay. Okay. And those,
Let's just walk through the.
oh, fantastic. Fantastic. Mr. Payne, right, you're front and center.
Sorry, guys.
That's all right. I'd like to hear about
Forgot we had a meeting tonight.
I don't want to control your
My day off.
report, but I'd like to hear about the fireworks. One thing.
Sure.
Anything else you think is significant?
Fireworks went off. Quite literally. Then a hitch. We've, historically, we've maintained about an 800-foot marine safety zone around the barge. We've been pushing that out a little more the past 2 years. We seem to get a little bit better compliance with people, a little bigger area. I don't know why, but yeah, virtually no issues. Couple of little boats popping through, but virtually no issues. Ian Crowley contracts with Douglas Marine to do the mooring and moving the barge around. Seamless, flawless. Can't say enough good stuff about those guys. They're great.
Great.
And no real issues.
I'm just curious, what was your impression of the boat count? Or
It seemed for the majority of the time, definitely less boats. Towards the end of the evening, I would say, they filled up quite a bit. We've really been suggesting Pipes Cove as a reasonable alternative for anchoring to, as opposed to in that general area by Crescent Beach there. So it's hard to tell because we push a lot of boats that way now. I think it was lighter. Seems to be the trend of this year is everything is lighter boat-wise. But well attended, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Just definitely not as chaotic as it had been.
Yeah, I would say the boat traffic was 50% of what it's usually been.
I mean, in general, not just the
It
fireworks,
was it was down,
Fireworks.
definitely down.
for the
Yeah.
fireworks.
Yeah.
Right at the end, it really filled in a lot, like a lot of people came.
Everybody was
Between like
coming.
that 8:15 and 8:45 hour, they came, they dropped, and then they were out of there. So it made it a little bit hard to tell, but it was palatable for the first, I don't know, 6 hours I was there.
I was one of those boats that came in and left. It was fantastic.
Right.
I just want to say it was great.
Yeah, good.
The whole thing seemed like really tight. I found a spot to anchor. It was no issues. I thought it was great. So
Yeah.
congratulations.
So a big shout out to, obviously every year we work with the Sheriff's Department Marine Unit. Southampton Towns, Marine Patrol sends a boat over. South Holds, Marine Patrol sends a boat over. Shelter Island Fire Department sends a boat. So all told, we have generally between 6 and 8 boats on scene for that event. So it's a lot of enforcement presence to make sure that it goes off well and those guys come over and give us their time. So we appreciate that.
Well, that was a close call because my daughter's president of that, and she couldn't find a barge.
Yeah, last year I was working with her when she found Ian. And Ian's been great. Like
And what they got this year was half the size of last year. When the guys with the Gucci can, they looked down, that's all you got?
they packed it on there. It was in there.
We're gonna have to double up on the plywood.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's,
Kudos for them. Nobody, there was no injuries or anything, right?
no injuries, no. Yeah, I think there was 1 or 2 heated cases on the beach unrelated to the fireworks themselves.
Okay.
But overall, a flawless event again.
Question, how do you think the boat traffic was before that? I know in years past leading up to the actual fireworks, it's just a complete mess.
On the day of, you mean?
Yeah, on the day of.
Yeah, no, I mean, all together, boat traffic seems lighter this year. So all day that day,
It was
I think we got over there probably around 3 o'clock, 3:30, somewhere in there. We pretty much just started hanging out in that area. And it was very light the whole time, just trickle, 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 trickle. So,
Alrighty.
And what about the anchorages in general?
yeah,
In general?
lot less traffic overall in them.
West Neck was light.
West Neck has been for the past 2 weekends, which typically would be near the top of the busiest weekends. I would say nearly manageable. Like, ordinarily, it's a zoo, right? Like it gets out of control. But
What a-
maybe we handed out, every time we interact with a boat that's outside the anchorage, with regard to the anchorage, we always hand out one of the boater's guides.
Yep,
Last year, we handed out hundreds of them
Right.
over the course of the year. This year, this weekend, I think we handed out 8, right? So like that's a pretty low number
yeah.
overall. So I don't know. I think people have learned that boating is really expensive and it takes a lot of time and a lot of commitment.
Yes, sir.
And they're thinking there's better things to do.
Here's another judgment question I got for you. So of the boaters that are out there, the ones you've interacted with, what's your impression of the quality of their seamanship relative to other years?
That's somewhat subjective. I can't really answer that in an objective manner. you know,
No, but I'm
there's,
curious whether the remaining people who are in it are qualified people, or are they new people, or?
I think the majority of the boating public in the past couple of years is relatively new to boating. And that shows most of the time.
That's still a case.
Yeah, because they haven't boated that much between then and now.
Okay.
You doing any inspections or checking on holding tanks?
Yeah, the MSC inspections, yeah, so we've done a couple, and no violations, which is awesome, we like that.
Good.
That coupled with the water testing that we're doing in those areas, which is not showing any alarming issues, also very reassuring. Hopefully, we're gonna be doing some more of those MSDs. We actually had planned to do some on Saturday, 2 weeks ago. But there was just simply too many boats in Cockles Harbor at the time for us to be able to do it in the time frame that we had, so we had to kind of defer it to another day, so.
By show of hands, who's been looking at those water testing results?
Briefly.
I mean, they're really telling, and, you know, it's information we've never had available before. And thank you for the work that you're putting in. And my only regret is that the government agencies that are supposed to be doing this weren't able to give us this information.
Yeah.
It took a nonprofit, private group to make it happen.
So just so we understand what's happening, right? Monday morning is the sampling day, either Monday or Tuesday. I'm off on Mondays and Tuesdays, coincidentally. So I come in, I collect the samples, I run them over by boat to Windmill Beach in Sag Harbor, which is right at the windmill in Sag Harbor, hand them off to another group of volunteers who's collecting for the Blue Water Task Force, and then they drive them to Southampton, where they're handed off to another group of volunteers, and then they eventually make it to Hampton Bays for testing. So it's a very, very elaborate, coordinated event to get that to all work.
For anybody who hasn't taken a peek, please, take 5 minutes. What's it, Blue Water something?
Blue Water Task Force.
Blue Water Task Force, Google that. Anything else?
I think so, unless you have any questions.
Briefing by chairman. I have two things I wanted to bring up. One is that there was an instance that was brought to my attention of a boat in the middle of West Neck Harbor. That's the first bay you get into. Chuck right in the center, just a good sized yacht. And a person commented to him, a passerby, resident said, you can't be anchoring, unless you're a resident out in the middle of the harbor. His response was, we're not anchoring, we're on Skyhook. Skyhook is an automatic positioning system that has now become more and more popular on, expensive vessels. They just press a button, stay here, and the boat just stays there. So if we don't want boats hanging out in the middle of our waterways, we're gonna have to address that.
But it's only new boats that have a whole bunch of thrusters all over them.
Yeah, yep.
It's usually the bigger boats.
Yeah, the system's been out for, I bet you it's been out for close to 10 years, but it's more recently been widespread. Beginning was just Volvo. You had to be a Volvo-powered craft, and now it's just commonplace.
It's something where we have to make addition to the town code, I guess.
Yep.
No anchoring, no hanging out.
No hanging out.
That comes across really well when I pull up next to a boat. What did I do wrong? Oh, you're hanging out. Sorry, we don't allow
Designated
that.
skyhook area.
Yeah.
That's all I got to add to the show for now. Oh, old business. Christina sent out to everybody the new ethics code. It's about 18 pages long, and it included a sign-off sheet that you've read it, understand it. No questions. I don't know. I signed it, handed it into Barbara Bloom. Right, Christina?
Yes.
Okay. So let's
Next door.
yes, Barbara Bloom. in that office. If you give it to Judy, she'll give it to Barbara.
Something I have to do.
Yeah. All right, down into new business.
Before, one more thing of old business.
Yep.
The dredge project that came across, I believe it was last month, and it was kind of completed already.
Yep.
Those dredge spoils were actually not deposited in the area they were designated to be deposited. Put up against the bulkheads to the north. To the,
Silver Beach.
yeah, Silver Beach.
Silver Beach?
Yeah, those dredge spoils were deposited along that bulkhead, which is where they've been doing it for years. I just wanted to make note that there was a conflict in the permit. They were supposed to go down by the bulkhead in an area just to the north of the bulkhead, the inlet there.
That's on the outside,
I think that was it, Roy.
south of Credit Creek, is that?
Yeah, that's.
There is another problem there that's brewing. One of the big houses bulkhead is gone. And it's undermining that whole lawn. And I imagine it's gonna start affecting adjacent properties.
You mean down on the green lawns?
Yep,
Yeah,
That's
you
way north.
can
That's
guess
way
who
north
it might
there.
be. So
yeah. That is an issue too.
it's a significant washout.
Really?
So if I understand this correctly, the
Two separate.
Dredge spoils
Excavation.
separate from
Right.
that bulkhead he just spoke
all
of.
right, but the excavation was deposited where it traditionally was, but not where the permit was said?
Yeah. So I don't know what we want to address that next time that permit comes across, maybe.
And is there any obvious,
50 years, right?
Well, I think they have it done every year. Yeah, they do that every year.
is obviously detrimental, what,
No, I actually don't see a problem with it. I just think the permit should
okay,
be proper, that's all.
okay, gotcha. Gotcha, all right. All right, dock moratorium proposal. It's obvious, if you look at this, we've got, how many applications here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6?
Yeah.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6 dock applications. It's pretty rare for this time of year. Usually we're looking for stuff to do in the summertime. So our code is pretty broad, particularly if you look at other towns surrounding us. And we haven't had, as a committee, haven't had a whole lot of time to address code issues. The last time we made some code recommendations was probably 3 years ago, probably, right?
Yeah, we looked over the dock code with
Yeah.
Stefano.
Yeah, so between the pandemic and then other pressing issues or controversial issues, our time has been completely taken up with application reviews. And so a number of us have come to the conclusion that if we had a moratorium on new permits, then we wouldn't have to concentrate on those, and we could concentrate on rewriting the code to adopt to what the current situation is. Bill's done a bunch of work on this.
So I'm just going to read the proposal I put together, just the easiest. The rapid growth and spread of development is increasing demands on the island's natural resources, which include the town's shoreline. In order to protect, preserve, and maintain that natural asset for the health of the environment, fishing, shellfishing, swimming, recreational use, access, aesthetic value, safety, cultural importance, and economic benefit, it is necessary to establish a moratorium on any future dock construction and application consideration. The current code does not take into consideration the extremely diverse nature of the island's shoreline. One set of rules and criteria is inadequate to address the needs and requirements of each portion of that shoreline, which consists of creeks, bays, harbors, and open waters with respect to depth, exposure, currents, wave action, wind, shoreline protection, erosion, preservation, boat traffic, navigation, vessel size, obstructions, property setbacks, fishing, swimming, general recreation, marine life, environmental protection, and aesthetics. Now is the time to put in place a moratorium, given the rate of development of town shoreline. That there exists the potential for greater than 400 additional docks to be built, that during the past 12 months, there have been 20 dock applications, with 13 of them needing variances and 3 presenting situations not addressed by the current code. In 2019, the year before the pandemic, there were 8 applications, with 6 of them needing variances. And finally, the fact that the town is in the midst of developing a comprehensive plan which addresses many of these issues. A moratorium at this juncture will, number one, prevent further construction of useless, impractical, potentially dangerous structures that are generally harmful to the public and the environment. 2, provide for the time necessary to determine suitable criteria for each portion of the island shoreline and to consider design alternatives. And finally, prevent hasty decisions that could adversely impact landowners, the general public, and the environment. So I just put that out there for consideration for the committee and for a vote.
I'd like to thank you for writing it. I think it's comprehensive and I think it's timely.
Yeah, that's good. I agree, 100%.
So on the table is going to be a motion to recommend to the town board that they consider this or put this moratorium in place. That's what the motion is going to be. So thank you for your input. Is there something you'd like to add or subtract from that?
No, I think I can echo the rest of the board here. I think that's thanks Bill for putting it together. I appreciate it, and Chairman for bringing it up. I think it's an important thing and I appreciate the opportunity to take a longer look. I think it is helpful to not be doing sort of one-off considerations on each of these docks and their different contexts.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, I think Bill's put some very careful thought and time and work. I know he's put a lot of time and work and thought into this, and it shows. There's I don't see anything on here that you can say, well, that's ridiculous.
No, it's pretty spot on, you know.
Yeah.
The only thing I would wonder was if there were a moratorium passed, would that give us an opportunity to have the docks that are currently CO'd examined, so to speak, by proper authority, I guess the building inspector, to make sure that they're still adhered to what the CO says and that additions haven't been made, and also check for maintenance issues. I brought up maintenance issues a while ago, and I don't know whether this would be a time to do that, or.
That could be, if I understand what your concern is, that could be done at any point in time. If, I guess I shouldn't mention any names, but I saw a dock in West Neck, and half the dock was, askew, hanging in the water. Off, fingers were gone.
Not to name names, but there are quite a few docks that do need.
So I don't see that should be something that's brought to the attention. I would hope the harbor master could bring that to the building department. Something like that.
Yeah, I mean, if it gets to the point of causing a hazard navigation, then we'll compel somebody to address it.
Or even a potential hazard. I mean, this thing, half the dock is hanging
Yeah,
off.
it's been like that for quite a while.
Potential and actual, two very important differences.
Okay. Councilman.
Are we
Now, I'm saying, I can't compel somebody to fix something if there's no lawful
I think
underpinnings to that order.
So that the judgment call, whether it's how potentially.
A more concrete example. I was out taking a loop today, walking the Silver Beach, looking at some of the locations, and one of the docks that I passed is missing a step, and then going up and then coming down. It's clearly gonna fall. If I stepped on it, it would have broken through. So that wouldn't really be a harbor master thing exactly. It's from the shore. At the same time, it's a dock.
I'm wondering if maybe there isn't some way to put someone on this and actually check these docks over the course of a couple of years, and
it sounds like a building department issue.
that's what I think, because I think that the bay constables are too busy to be looking at all the docks.
So
That'd be-
a hypothetical scenario here, right, is you're walking the beach, you see that sort of thing, you say, hey, this is a public safety issue, right? There's a problem. This is intended for the public to use. Somebody is going to step on this and they're going to get hurt. Most people generally then call the police department, right? That's just how it works. Sometimes they might call the highway department or building department, but more often than not, they'll call the police department. We would get that, we'd take a look at it, we'd say, yeah, that's something that needs to be addressed, and the proper avenue for addressing that would be the agency having authority, which would be the building department. So we would forward that, right? So it's kind of a long-winded but documented way of getting that, but it's complaint driven, right? Like
Okay.
the majority of enforcement issues, regardless of the department, right? Whether it's police department, building department, whatever, is generally driven on Shelter Island, right? We don't have staff that are just out monitoring things 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We don't do it that way currently.
And is there any sort of representation in the permits where somebody's, the ongoing maintenance is any kind of a scheduled sort of maintenance?
That's part of code. You have to, dock has to maintain,
Schedule.
not schedule, but it has to be maintained in a maintained manner. I think that might be.
I'm not disagreeing with you, Tom. You're talking about a pretty major effort and expense.
Yeah, that's what I was scared of, because it's,
Unless you're volunteering.
well, I could go through, I know where they are, but I don't, like I said, I don't want to be the one naming names and,
I think the complaint to the building department is.
Yeah.
A bunch of things,
yeah.
not just that. Back to the moratorium, if I could suggest something, any moratorium should be as short as humanly possible. And that's an impact. He's sitting right here.
In the verbiage or the
And so-
length of time?
So would the committee be willing to get out there and walk the beaches and, make the specific recommendations that are sort of implied in Bill's proposal?
Okay, I understand your question, how serious are we gonna take this, is basically what you're
Are you
saying.
gonna do the work?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
well, this is where the expertise is.
Yeah. no, I don't doubt that Bill's gonna crack the whip. We've already had this discussion, so,
Oh, I think this is a good idea, and I got no problem
but.
whatsoever checking
Your
locations out.
How do you determine the term of it?
Well, the term moratorium, but also, you're gonna, I would hope, fine-tooth comb the island. In other words, it's not gonna be when you come up with the suggested changes, the moratorium is into place, you're using that time, right? To determine which shorelines are maybe no longer appropriate or never were appropriate. And that's an effort. I'm just throwing that out there. It's an effort that
Well, yeah, I
this
think-
committee would have to undertake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what, you can imagine one meeting might be completely devoted to Cockles Harbor, shoreline, and one to Deming Harbor, so if you.
You have to identify the types.
Yeah,
Six months.
identify the types, yeah.
Yeah, and 6 months is a long time in moratorium land. Just having with the housing and all of that, we're trying to, and maybe the moratorium doesn't have to cover everything. Maybe there's areas where it's clear that there's no question.
When I first heard of it,
So if you're gonna recommend a moratorium, maybe a little even fine tuning the recommendation, that doesn't cover everything.
That's only for new docks, right?
only for new docks, correct. When I first heard this suggestion, that's when I went back to John. I heard it on Friday and I said, John, over the weekend, survey the board and figure out, the committee, how you feel about this. But I would like to, if you're going to sell us to the town board, another moratorium, I think there's got to be a solid rationale for why we're looking to do this. What are we going to examine during this 6-month period of time that we walk the coastlines? And again, if you break it down into phases, phase 1, 2, and 3, and you take the different harbors and you want to do it that way, but there's got to be some type of rationale. I don't want to just drop the term moratorium out there on a Tuesday meeting and say, okay, here goes the town board again, with another moratorium. What else can they mess with in my life? But I do think you have some, there's enough discussion that has come about in the last year and a half, 2 years, 3 years over docks, where they should be, where they shouldn't be, and good rationale why, that we should spend some time trying to sort out a case, develop, maybe in the first month here, try to develop some type of rationale of why we want to do what we want to do. And then maybe then set up a calendar where we would go out devote a month or two to be able to go to these different areas around the island and then propose some type of restriction, whether it's going to be, as opposed to announcing it and then going about doing it. I think we maybe, number one thing, you have to have the rationale in place before we can get this through with the other three, I think, town board members. I just think it's, a sound way to go. And then the other thing is have a plan and a timeline, a realistic timeline of where we can go about getting this done.
Right.
And I'm so sorry for being, when I do this book in the beginning of the year and I put 6 o'clocks on all of these things, and then we change them, do you think once I go back and change up from 6 o'clock to 5? But my humble apologies for screwing up. And then I had somebody coming to my house at 5 o'clock to give me some advice on a lawnmower where there's a battery or starter, and I got caught up in that. So sorry about that, my fault.
Yeah, so I guess I'll just speak for all of us. We haven't thought through what the process is going to be if a moratorium is put in place. Then what are we going to do? I can envision starting with looking at all the variances that we approved and seeing whether or not that those are appropriate. Looking at stuff that we said was precedent, even though it's not in the code. Do we want to continue with that precedence? Or do we want to add it to the code? Things of that nature.
I think you could divide those up into that, John, and safety concerns, on, the southwest corner of the island, where every dock application that comes up, we talk about safety. Environmental impact, I think that's a whole nother area of things that we can develop rationale on environmental impact. But precedent is one of them. So I think there's 3 or 4 solid things you can sink your teeth into about having a rationale here. But I think we need to put that on paper, develop that idea, come back, get a unanimous, bring it to the town board. Yeah, a strategy, put up a timeline. We need the months of August, September, and October to get this thing done. Then, we'll be prepared to put this moratorium in by, September 15th, October 15th, whenever it might be, because there's not a tremendous amount of dock building going on now, but there will be obviously in the future. So I just think,
I tried to cover all bases. I think it's a pretty lengthy list of issues that need to be considered, and what I envisioned we would look at the different types of shorelines that we have.
right,
And what issues on this list are addressed in each one, and then determine what the problems are. So I don't think it's going to take much, but I wanted to throw it all out there and then hone in on a few of these items that are most pressing. So.
And we can also look at how other towns are handling their shorelines.
just for Southold, because I just came back from a conference a month ago, there is no bulkheading allowed on the Peconic estuary in any of Southold, any of it. So is that not right?
On the estuary, yeah.
On the estuary, correct, not on the outside, but on the inside, on the estuary.
And they're trying to get us to use more rocks.
They obviously are pushing more for a natural shoreline, which is what we're pushing for a real point. And I would, we are now back in touch with the Army Corps of Engineers, and we're hoping to get that thing going, the Army Corps.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Is this moratorium going to encompass applications that conform the current code, or just applications that go beyond the code? Is it going to be a blanket of all no docks for anybody, or is it just going to be for the people that are seeking relief from current code?
Good question.
Good question, yeah.
If a new dock is going to be constructed in a place that we come to find out that that's maybe not such a good place for a dock, or perhaps that type of dock.
That length of dock,
Yeah, if that application is right here,
Could it be outside, focused almost exclusively on the outside, the moratorium, I mean?
well, no, I don't think so, because I've seen docks that were, the one that came up without the permit that we covered over in your creek there, Second Bridge Creek. I don't think there should be that type of dock in that creek at all. There should be no floats, no jacked up float, What you have is pretty much the limit of what I think should go in there, and I think that's not.
Creeks are some of the most environmentally sensitive areas, so.
Yeah, that's I think that has to be in consideration in this, yeah. I mean, that's just one example, one area.
I don't think, in answer to your question, Jack, if we're considering limiting construction to some extent on certain shorelines, then it would have to be across the board until those shorelines are examined.
Agreed.
I don't know if I'm saying
John,
that.
I have a question, just
Yeah.
in who is on our committee is qualified to judge if a particular shoreline is
Good point.
appropriate or inappropriate for a dock? I mean, don't you need, if you're gonna change something, don't you need a professional evaluator, an outside evaluator to decide these things? Somebody with a degree. I can't understand how you could take 5 guys and say, walk along the shoreline and say, this is appropriate, this isn't appropriate, without leaving ourselves open for litigation. I can't, I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around that.
I think a lot of it, Al, is common sense. If you look at an area and it's exposed to wind and wave action, you've got a problem. If there's no depth, you've got a problem. If you're seeing excessive erosion, you've got a problem. If it's a highly trafficked area, you have a problem. If there are obstructions, you have a problem. I don't think it takes a scientist to observe and make note of numerous items here. We've been doing this and approving docks for years. I think taking a harder look at some of these issues is certainly within our purview.
And to some extent, there are, in the problem areas, the docks, there's been requests for variances in the code so that the dock could even exist. So that's what we're talking about. Do we want to keep doing that? And this is a crappy place for a dock, but if we double up on the splashboards and triple up on the pilings and put dolphins off it, then it would survive. Do we want to keep doing that? Or do we want to draw the line, say, 100-foot length and 4 foot of depth? And if that's not going to work for you because you're exposed all the way to Jessup's Neck, then I'm sorry.
I'm not positive on this, but I believe over in North Haven, on the western shore of North Haven, town either does not allow, or perhaps they don't want docks on that side there. I don't know how they determined that, but I'm wondering how another township has already determined that.
They've loosened up that regulation
They have.
on the western shore facing Jessup's Neck.
Okay, I'm just wondering how they came to that kind of a conclusion, whether they used a group like ours, or did they have a professional that they brought?
Yeah. Just, can I can speak a little bit to that. I know in Southampton town, the DEC is the one that has the jurisdiction in outside waters. The town doesn't have jurisdiction in outside waters. The town only has, Southampton town only has jurisdiction in their inside waters.
By whose authority, do you know?
The trustees.
The
ceded that authority?
trustees, whether they gave it up or whether the DEC absconded it, I don't know, but that's.
Well, inside
that's
waters
my-
would be trustees, but outside waters is clearly state.
It's DEC.
Yeah, outside is DEC, but inland waters in Southampton would be trustees, I believe.
Right.
So
Their
we
outside
thought-
waters are different than our outside waters.
Or they may have an LWRC in place
Outside are in the bays.
that passes that on to the DEC.
Outside waters on the ocean.
They also have Bayfront as well.
All right, so where we at here? Let's try and get our focus back. I think what you're saying, Jim, is that before this comes to the town, from the table and for the town board, we'd like to see more detail on how we think we're going to implement it.
The first thing I think you need is the rationale. I think you need a concise statement of the following 4 reasons is a definition of why we're here, why we're at this step, why we're looking to establish a moratorium based on reasons 1 through 4. And whether environmental reasons, safety reasons, this thing, the shoreline, the movement to natural shorelines, the disruption of natural shoreline, whatever you want to say. But develop that rationale first.
Do you read this?
Yeah, and I think if you then, getting back to Al's point though, about qualified people to be able to look at this, I think you have some experience here. Joe does have marine experience, Fenora, as an engineer. I would think that Joe would need to be part of this evaluation. I would think that if you weren't too intimidated by it, you might want to even ask some experienced people, like Jack to be part of it, just to weigh in on some of this stuff. I think it should be a balanced, I don't see any fear in that of having a person that works in this area talking, because Jack is, one thing about him in my years being on here is that he's pretty fair-minded. He's pretty, if something's dangerous, he acknowledges it. He says, the customer has the right to do it. I agree with you, but, but I think there's some fairness here and there's some experience here, and it's a recommendation that's going to come forward on this. And then I think Steve Kyler's got to get involved in it as a town attorney and take a look at, what other towns are doing and is this fair, but the town code, we've gone through this year after year after year, and there seems to be a split on the WMAC about the individual's rights versus what's good for the island, the bigger picture. If you're making every judgment just based on what I can do, I'm entitled to this and therefore I can do it, you can't stop me, or I'll threaten to sue you, that's one thing. The other thing is we've got to start making decisions on the island that's a little bit of for the betterment of the future of the island. Whether it's shellfishermen, fishermen in general, the shorelines. Protection, the sea rise. There are a lot of things in this that we need to look at. So I don't think this is going to take a little time to do, but I think it's worth delving into. And when I heard that suggestion over the phone, I got back to you and said, let's set up something here. The first thing is
I could envision even inviting a trustee from another town
I think that might be a very good idea.
to give us the benefit of their experience in
Yeah.
drafting what are much more detailed guidelines than we have.
They may have a professional on staff that's already done this over there.
And that's
Paid for a study.
that's true.
Yeah.
That is true.
But
All right, so
Is there a time of year that would be less impactful to the economic well-being of people who are in this industry? Or for it to be less impactful?
that's something for Jack to answer.
We say we primarily bulkhead in the fall and we build docks in the spring. So we're coming into shortly the bulkhead season.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
Yeah.
And it- from start to finish, to get it from concept to permit, probably 6 months.
At least 6 to 8, maybe. Depends. But this moratorium's not gonna encompass bulkheading and stuff like that, and erosion control. It's just, you're talking about strictly docks.
Yeah, I think so, right? Yeah.
Talking about now.
That's good. That's enough.
And I think the stress level for your job and everybody else in here, in the summertime, it's tough. I think you've developed in July and August, you put together the rationale, got a group of people together, see if there's some people from other towns, and put together something that would start up in, like in September, October, do a bulk of the work there with the idea that you make some type of proposal by November, so that we consider it, because obviously the season for docks is going to be coming up in the spring. You'd like to have something well in advance, of that, if you're going to make an impact, to what extent of an impact you're going to make.
My concern is this agenda this evening was a complete surprise to me. Usually July, and especially, we've canceled meetings in August because there was nothing on the agenda. Nobody was looking to get anything done.
Yeah.
And here's one of the most,
This is a pile.
this is the biggest agenda of review that I can ever remember. So I don't know if this is going to be a continuing trend or not. For July,
I think if you propose a moratorium, you're gonna see a lot more.
Yeah.
no, we're not. No,
That is true.
See a bum rush, yeah.
That
What are
is-
you gonna
that is
see?
true.
If there's a moratorium, what are you gonna see? You're not supposed to be seeing anything. You're supposed to be working on it. Right,
Yeah.
Bill?
Jim, can a question for you on the building moratorium? Has there been any litigation
Started today.
in terms of people suing the town over?
Did you hear BJ's comment? She said it started today.
Litigation.
It
The
started
litigation.
today?
Yeah.
Okay,
Litigation.
You can almost anticipate on any of these things, by the way, you're going to see that.
What litigation?
right. I
building of
I tend to.
A house
I
greater than
agree.
5,999 square feet.
Al's got the floor, sorry. Go ahead.
Can I just finish? Yeah, and I'm just gonna say the experience that Sag Harbor had when they did a building moratorium is the town was sued, they lost, and all of the projects that were in the works were just blanketly approved by the judge. So they never even got back to, let's say, the committee that had a chance to either approve or reject them. They just were blanketly passed. So I'm just, I just want to, I think that the intention is in the right place. I understand it, but I just think that we should proceed with caution. That's my opinion, just from, from my outside sources.
It wasn't the law, I believe, that caused Sag Harbor the problem. I think it was the capricious process that they proposed and didn't go through.
Right, exactly, Mark. That's why I'm saying to proceed with caution. All right, and if you don't have a professional opinion on, why something should not be built in a particular place, you're leaving yourself open to that discriminatory or arbitrary, decision.
Maybe instead of a moratorium, we just vote how we feel about the things instead of like precedent was set and sort of put it in the town board's court and not use the word moratorium, but get this code revision done sooner than later.
Double up on our meetings.
Excuse me?
Double up on our meetings
Well,
so that we have a
I mean,
meeting.
I think there's a pretty good framework in people's minds about things. I'm just, I agree with Al that sometimes it's like yelling fire in the movies. You can say moratorium and then everybody comes out of the woodwork. So. I don't know.
It's something
I
I'd like
think
to
we
talk
all
to.
know,
Go ahead.
we all know what seemingly is a good place and a bad place. I mean, and maybe we should just, stand our ground and recommend to the town that something not be approved. And then concurrently keep moving on code revision. Because by the time you get all the ducks in line for the moratorium, the cow's been let out of the barn.
I think,
Then the question becomes, if we don't go the moratorium route, how do we accomplish? I think a bunch of you all already said what Bill wrote up. These are legitimate concerns, issues. So how do we get the time to work on these? This is not a moratorium.
The point being that the code just does not adequately address what we have in front of us as far as a shoreline and the conditions that we're dealing with. And we're constantly granting variances which undermine the code. So we're diluting the code, we're not enforcing the code, and it's put us in a corner.
I say a third to a half of our permits are granting variances and not going. And then that becomes capricious at a certain point, and it becomes illegal.
It does seem like the proposals that are coming in are somewhat maximalist. I'm going to ask for what I can get, or I could ask for what I truly want this high level, and sort of then going and trying to get the committee to negotiate against itself on what it will actually accept. And that's, that creates that.
I think the membership is in general agreement that what Bill wrote down here, these are legitimate issues that most of us are concerned about. Then the question becomes about what's the most efficient way to deal with these? Certainly the moratorium is one way, a route to go. It would help us accomplish this. I don't know.
Well, I would hope, I don't know, because I haven't been able to get a hold of him, ask him about it, but I would hope that Steve Kiley might have some thoughts about how to avoid this situation where you ban guns and everyone runs out and buys a gun. So.
When we discuss the house, okay, when we discuss the housing moratorium, anything that has not been issued a permit yet was, unless, I think that the determination is if you have expended an extraordinary amount of money, however you define that, but things in the pipeline don't count. You have to have a permit already. Otherwise, yeah. I might have misstated that. I'll make sure that I.
Well, it's a.
We could also spend some of our waterways money and hire somebody.
No, it's true.
I'm serious.
Yeah.
Well, let's see if we found a professional that.
So just to try and keep working through this, the upside of the moratorium is give this committee time to focus on that issue exclusively. What's the downside of moratorium?
Bob rush before the moratorium goes into place.
And that's one technique and one approach to avoid.
I don't think that rush is that real. When you, Jack, I wasn't trying to sneak up on you, but if it takes 6 months to put a permit together.
Maybe it's not an issue then.
There's probably some stuff in the pipeline, but it'd be pretty difficult to get bombarded with permits out of the blue, I think.
Yeah, because they gotta come through the DEC, Department of Engineering, Department of State, so it just happened, they just came up at the same time.
Yeah. Bo's got some.
So, yeah, I just have a question for you. Is there a mandate requiring action on an application within a period of time by your committee?
No, but I think you're at risk if you slow walk.
I'm not saying slow walk it. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is fill your agenda with the work that you need to get done. And when you accept an application, advise that person, we've got a lot of things on this agenda, the next agenda, and the next agenda. We're currently reviewing new applications for docs in about 3 months. Right? DEC doesn't say, I'm sure DEC looks over a permit when they have staff and time and personnel to do it. Well, obviously it's great to submit an application on Thursday and have it at least initially reviewed on the following Monday. Maybe that happens, maybe it doesn't, but that's fantastic. Right, that's awesome, small town, let's get things done. But if we're not able to do the work that we need to do to ensure we're making good decisions in that application review process, table the applications for a period of time. Not saying you can't submit it. We're gonna look at it once we have a clear head to look at it.
I'd say we adjourn the meeting.
Beg your pardon?
I'd say we adjourn the meeting.
Right, don't put it on the next agenda. The next agenda is you're looking at town code issues.
I think the town board's got to weigh in on this because, they're not We're not divorced from them.
Not yet.
I mean, after listening to the comments here, just the last half hour, that moratorium is a flash word, you know, it is, can you get to the same end doing it differently? You know, I respect Al's comments and James's comments. I think they've made some excellent points. But can we devote some time, even if it means maybe the 2 meetings a month, and put one of those meetings just devoted to looking at town code and how we can, you know, address the town code. The other comment that was made over here before, Jack, I'm going to ask you honestly, I usually get a fairly honest response out of you, is that with house size moratorium, what we were finding on the town board, my 8 years experience is, let's go to them, ask for a lot, but we'll settle for less, rather than, because we only need this, but is the same mentality, because somebody suggested that before, that sometimes people are asking for a little longer dock, a little deeper water, a little more splashboard, a little more this, a little more that. Do you find it that people are asking for more than and they're very happy to cut it back to, you know, from 150 to 125, even though we only allow 100, but, you know, it is.
That negotiation tactic happens very seldomly, because
Okay.
it's all a matter of time. Dock means value to the property, dock means usage, water access, everything, so people usually don't want to play that game. That would be a very rare.
That's a rare situation, but you've seen it once or twice in the past, maybe.
Yeah, like,
Okay.
not all parties, like I said, everybody in here is time sensitive.
So when you deal with customers, I'm just out of curiosity, and you put in docks all the time, the people that come here that say, you know, I'm entitled to a dock and I don't care about these other things, is there anything that you do in terms of educating them or your counterparts do in terms of, you know, maybe this is an area that we shouldn't do this and we shouldn't do that? I mean, do you try to guide them, or do they have you know, and you've done this for so many years, what's this process like when you deal with a client?
Well, if I go down to the beach with a client and I don't see a dock in either direction, I tell them to hire a full-time expediter and an attorney, because I'm not gonna do it. That's basically the one thing, you know, me and, you know, other guys have business. If there's no dock, I would consider it a pristine area, or where there's seagrass beds, then it's not gonna, you know, it's not worth my time. I kind of have a busy agenda here as it is. I can't take on applications that require attorneys and stuff like that. So that's one little thing that we all do. You know, we don't see a dock in either direction. You know, get an attorney.
That would be a red flag for the DEC.
Well, sometimes it is, you know, sometimes they'll come and say we consider this a pristine beach, they can say, you know, testing or whatever. But, you know, that's just something that I don't really do, because it's too much.
All right, so here's another idea possibly. What if we ask for a moratorium on reliefs?
On what?
A relief,
What?
you know, variances.
Applications we're going to entertain, are ones that pertain,
That meet the current
abide
code.
by the current code.
We can do that by right.
Yeah, but again, that's.
Are you obligated to grant relief?
No.
You would think so.
Like, why not just say
The
this?
way we function, you would think we are.
You're 100% correct. I mean, I think that's a great suggestion. I think the town board would buy some, you know, with only two of us here, but that's something I would be very comfortable going back to my three counterparts and saying, yeah, I think that's fair, you know.
Bill.
Still get crappy dock.
If we set the precedent that we offer relief, do you know what I'm saying? Then all of a sudden we stop without a moratorium.
Yeah,
Is
but
that a problem?
no, if we go strictly by the letter of the code, you know, someone's got to argue, you know, no matter what you do, you can have lawsuits, but someone can certainly dig through and find approved docs and say, you know, you granted this relief in a prior situation, why not this situation? And that's the problem, bad precedent. But if we agree that we're going to stick to the code, at least we've got that
I like that.
as a guideline. I mean, that's been what I've been arguing to do since I got on committee.
Okay. You've been very consistent on that, all right? Very consistent.
So that would be nice.
That makes a lot of sense.
I think so too.
Yep.
I think so too. I think we could sell that, initially, and, there's got to be much more proof that you need. This hardship letter stuff always is a joke with me, saying, go back and get a hardship letter. You can write a letter about anything, create a hardship. 75 years old, and hey, listen, you don't, come on.
Jesus, if we all agree that it was a good idea, I might ask for adjournment.
Let's do the moorings. and The bulkheads.
All right, so we've got two ideas, or three ideas. One is a moratorium, and what would be the term of that, and how would we structure that? How would the WMEC structure, making that effective, or being effective with it? And then there's no moratorium and just adding on meetings. It's a lot. Everybody here works hard, I think, and it's a lot to ask. It's not impossible. Or the site, or the, I just came up with, which seemed to be somewhat well received, is some sort of moratorium on the
Variance.
on the letter of the code.
You don't have to declare a moratorium on that. All we have to do is our job.
Yeah.
Does that make, I think you're saying that makes some sense.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, yeah.
And in the meantime, we can work on the code.
Yeah.
And
That's-
and identifies the areas that need to be adjusted by new code provisions.
So the next thing is what? The town board's point of view.
Is that gonna be a recommendation?
Get some legal input.
I think makes a lot of sense.
It adheres strictly to town code, and then work on the town code, and designate a time frame for working on docks. We worked on moorings, let's work on the docks. What's it going to take? It's going to take 3 months, 4 months? When are we going to start? When are we going to finish? And, give those recommendations back, and maybe bring Steve Kiley in periodically, just to, as we progress through this, to make sure that these things are all.
So do you want a resolution?
I think we could all put in input now about what we think and get going on it.
Yeah, sure.
Not tonight.
Separate
Not
meeting.
tonight.
Separate
Not
meeting.
tonight.
Separate meeting for this.
Well, at your leisure at home, for instance. You have so much leisure time, probably.
We're in a position now to say, to draft, to just a simple resolution that, it's our recommendation that the town puts in place a moratorium on relief from current dock code.
I don't think you have to do that. Why don't you
don't have to do that.
just do what Bill said?
It's a decision.
Yeah. Adhere to the code.
Immediately,
Correct.
WMAC will not accept or consider applications for docks that are not compliant,
That are not compliant with town code.
just period.
Yeah.
Like, if it's a compliant dock, we'll look at it. If it's not compliant, we're not accepting it.
We got that. We got that.
We don't need any resolutions or anything?
No.
But what we need is the town board to agree to follow along those lines.
Just sport.
Well, sure.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll bring it up tomorrow.
We are not the decision makers. We make recommendations to the town board.
No, I think they'll support this. WMAC will accept only applications that meet current town code when it comes to docks.
I think it's great.
Right.
And then we start working on the town code. Whether you're going to have a subcommittee, you're going to do it as an entire committee, whether you're going to do it in between meetings, whether you're going to have separate meeting, that's all up to you guys to decide the best way to go.
Everybody's going to do it all the time.
Who's this going to? Is it going to John? Is you designate a person who's going to collect all these ideas from the committee?
Collect the ideas.
Okay, then is that okay with you?
What's
Directed.
Or Christina.
It's okay with them.
What did I just sign up for? What you guys just signed up for?
No, if you're going to go in between meetings and you have ideas from the committee.
I think that our agendas are pretty full, so we may have to take on another meeting a month just to get it
Well, let's work,
down.
let's take, I think it's a good idea, though. You can get a lot done in between meetings. You have suggestions, funnel them to Bill, let Bill put them all together, and really list every one of the input from the entire committee, and have a separate meeting, come in and put those out in front
The
of,
ones I don't like?
even the ones you don't like. Yeah, you gotta represent everybody.
Yeah.
We come in, and in one meeting, we hash it all out, and,
We have an obligation to have it in person, or
That
because
sounds
we're
good.
making decisions, or is it just consultation, in which case we can do it by Zoom?
by Zoom.
Subcommittee can be by Zoom.
Yeah.
Yeah, in other words, if you do a working group that's not a forum,
Okay.
you're fine. So you could almost maybe chop up the islands and have separate working groups.
Yeah.
So that your meetings could occur more conveniently.
But I mean, we wouldn't be making decisions in that case in anyways, we're adopting it as the full committee.
Right.
And informally, as, okay.
Yeah, I'll follow up with an email. And we'll take it from there.
All right,
Cool.
let's go through the list.
Yeah, let's get on the list.
Job gets
Ready
easier,
to move on to the next thing?
Yes.
job gets easier, we just obey the law.
Took a lot of work to get there, right?
Fantastic. Okay, the next thing is under new business is a Cohen mooring application.
Mooring.
Yes.
Stake mooring pulley. Strictly mooring.
Can we, oh, is it on there?
I don't know, he was vacillating a little bit, it looks like. Like he wanted a stake mooring pulley, but he seemed to say, well, unless it's a problem.
Yeah, because the stake mooring and pulley would be about 150 feet of line from his dock.
Right.
I mean, it would be a hazard to,
Yeah, no, that would be sinking a bay bottom that's,
There's also a brand new dock right in the way there now. That's where that's the trend for. The mooring is actually going
Not a lot of water there.
to the dock.
Right, so that picture is not depicting the dock that's currently there. Is that what we're saying?
So it's the same concept as that dock. It's just north of that harbor view there, where they have a little, it's a water access dock, and then it would be a stake pulley, or just a pulley line off of that. And if you guys aren't comfortable with that, we can certainly move that mooring in a little bit. I mean, to do the stake and pulley, if he finds that doesn't work, then we'll apply to move it back out. There's really no moorings out there. It's like wide open out there.
yeah, well, it's wide open for a reason, you like our open bay bottoms. I don't think that there should be a pulley line running from a dock to a mooring. I think that a pulley line is from shoreline to like a stake mooring pulley line. I don't think, like, there was a similar application in Cockles Harbor, I guess that dock.
No, we
That
did this,
platform.
we did this one, excuse me, Tom, right at the very upper left-hand corner of that.
can we zoom out again? Because I'm trying to,
Dock.
This dock only makes it.
Right on West Neck Road.
Oh, I lost it. W3031 is a stake mooring and pulley off the end of the dock.
Oh, there's one there as well, huh?
At least that was something we approved a long time ago.
Like on the outside of the harbor.
That's,
Yeah,
You guys remember that?
yeah.
yeah, because he couldn't get into any kind of water with the dock.
Right, right.
but maybe there shouldn't have been a dock. If you don't have water to put a boat on the dock, maybe you shouldn't have a dock. I've had problems with that.
Well,
It's a
it
new day, Tom.
depends on what you want, if you want to call it a dock or a catwalk, but it didn't go out over the water.
This one doesn't go out over the water either?
The one that we approved,
Well, this is Cohen. We just approved the catwalk last month or a month.
That was a catwalk, yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
and now he's dropping a mooring out. So either,
Let him just drop the mooring out and don't do, he's not really asking, he hasn't really asked for a riparian mooring.
Yeah, I think
Give
the
him what he asked
mooring
for.
is fine, I just don't like the idea of it.
All right, so it's just like he had chicken scratch on the application. I'm just made a comment that it looked like he maybe was thinking about it, but he says riparian mooring, so let's debate that. I mean, it looks like there's room there. I don't know how much water there is.
that's the other thing too, I don't think there's much water there. But then again, I don't know.
He used to stock,
Not
to show you how much water. on the last page.
He's got an inboard outboard, I think.
It's like 3 feet of water that goes up.
Yeah, I guess he does get out beyond that flat.
The push boat was high.
What size boat is this?
I was way inside of that.
And picture the boat
Looks
is
like-
there,
It's a 22-foot.
22.
We got a lot to do. You guys ready to vote on this?
Yeah, if it's a mooring, then it's fine.
I'm good.
Good with
Yes, straight up mooring.
the mooring or?
Mooring.
It's mooring.
With the
No,
repairing mooring.
Recommendations, says repairing more.
Yeah, we're repairing more, yeah, that's
Got
good. Yep.
Mark,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Bill,
good.
so it's 1, 2, 3, 4,
I didn't vote.
5.
You can vote, he's not feeling.
And
I can vote.
Yes.
So
Okay.
I'm in favor of it.
Thank you, James.
How's in Italy? How do you feel, Al?
In Italian, yes or no?
Great.
I can't.
6-0? 6-0, right?
Yes, thank you. Very good. Here we go. Next one, Rosen mooring. Private mooring.
Rosen, hello.
Bigger
Hello,
boat,
sure.
It's like another riparian, right?
27-foot boat,
28 foot?
728.
No sail, is that 28? Yeah.
Is it by his dock or the community dock? Oh, no, it's by his dock. Does he have another mooring?
He's proposing to take over the spot formerly occupied by 2946, which is what, your name?
One or two, we can ask him to scooch it in, but that's probably not a problem there. That's probably okay.
No, it's a spot that you guys have previously.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a takeover, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Does he have another mooring?
No.
That it should be a riparian mooring, or doesn't he not live there? 32 Hilo Drive.
Got a boat, so we're gonna do it in the boat.
Looks like,
Is it applied for private?
Yes, he's the, he owns.
Yeah, he says private mooring right in the
he
application.
does, but I mean, does he know about, my question is, if he's a property owner on the waterfront, maybe it should be a riparian mooring.
Bert says he owns a boat, so he's identified it.
We discussed it. I know you have, there is like a little bit of one quirk in your law that is a little bit more liberal with the riparian mooring about, I guess, notifying the town clerk about who's on the mooring. But besides that, I think it's pretty equivalent. He has a boat.
All right, well, whatever he wants, that's fine with us.
So, that makes it easier if he gets another boat someday, then he doesn't have to swap it over.
Okay,
Is it take over, John, of that mooring?
Yeah,
Decided on doing it with the boat since he has a boat.
okay, I'm good.
I'm good.
Mark, Bill,
Good.
James,
Good.
6-0.
6-0. Rienza bulkhead.
Jackie, this is you, right?
Yeah.
Didn't you, so when was the last bulkhead run down there? I know Paul used to name them after the hurricane.
Yeah, we replaced one section, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 years ago.
Yeah.
And this section that failed. One section's very old, and then another section failed that was put in by somebody when the beach was very, very high and the level dropped. So one bulkhead failed. So this is just an in-kind replacement.
Yeah, we actually, as a town board, actually asked for this when they put the application in. So if you're doing all this work, that's the one spot that's weak in that bulkhead, why not do it? He said, well,
Right where that hand is that? That's the weak spot?
Jack, is that the spot right there?
It's the spot to the right that failed. You can kind of see the hole right there.
Yeah.
That's the spot right there.
Yeah.
And then there's an older section.
That was replaced though, right, Jack?
It's replacing kind, yeah.
I know, but it was just done 7 or 8
Where
years
the
ago.
hand is now.
Not that
is
section,
remaining.
was it?
That section was done probably 25 years ago.
Right.
All right.
Now, they replaced the other stuff to the northwest.
Has he considered boulders? I mean, because this gets taken out all the time. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Well, like I said, the one failure was because the beach elevation dropped severely. But the newer pieces of bulkhead are fine. It's just, there was one piece that one pier never did, like originally. There's one piece there that's probably, I mean, literally 50, 60 years old.
Really?
Yeah. Maybe more.
And it's timber still?
Yeah, timber, this old timber.
Is there newer plastic in there as well?
With the big piece of property, I think I did the first 200 feet to the west.
Yeah, does he own this low groin that's here?
Yep.
He does, that's part of his?
Yes, the pool's on the property, everything, it's.
He owns right to the tree line.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, tree line to tree line is probably 450 feet in total. Right, I did the first, 200 feet, and it's still, and everything's fine, that was, I mean, maybe it was even longer, maybe it was.
Because, to be honest, when you talked about the boulders, we have boulders all the way along here. Obviously, the gabion wall ends way back near the stairs, just beyond the stairs. But then that we bought as a Silver Beach Association on our property, so we own this on both sides of Oak Tree Lane. We purchased for $4,000, we put 75, 100, 1.5 ton boulders in here. And then the town came in with 75 more smaller ones to put along in here. So it's almost bouldered all the way down to about this point. It's that last little bit that's not bouldered, but it's all been
Well,
replanted.
this is in between that. I'll show you, I'll show you real quick. Because, Paul just did whatever he could do financially at the time. This is new here.
Okay.
This is all like the old stuff. And then right about here, the rest of it's all, new within the past 15 years. And this is the last section. This is probably 60 years old. And this is probably 25 years old. Okay. So it's going to have some continuity now. That's going to all look the same.
The height is the same.
It's the same. Yep.
Makes sense to me.
What's the, in terms of the proposal, what do you use for mean high water? In terms of where do you actually get that information? Is it a surveyor comes in and actually assesses where the water is, or?
It comes off the survey. In a situation like this, we'll take it off the survey. We don't bring in a hydrographic surveyor for bulkheads. Unless the Army Corps of Engineers wants us to prove that the bulk is above spring high tide. And we usually use the hydrographic surveys for docks. This does not require that.
Because I was out there and it seemed to me that there's water on the bulkhead at the far end over here, and I was there at low tide. Have you ever seen it? But all along, sort of like when I was matching up what I was seeing on the proposals, it wasn't matching up with what I was seeing when I was there this morning. It was about an hour after high tide, and there was actually water where
Up against the bulkhead?
high tide on the surface. So I was just trying to figure out what
Those things change.
We are in a moon tide, I believe, right now.
Tide was up.
Yeah, it was in the woods today. Yeah.
Plus there's no beach left. I mean,
Right. And I think that's part of, I guess, my question though is like, what are we going to do as a committee? I mean, this is a whole separate thing about when a lot of these bulkheads are awash all the way through for public access. There's no intertidal zone anymore, and so now the mean high water mark is vertical. There's no slope to the beach. So for access purposes, you're walking along on Silver Beach, you can't go. I mean, that whole portion by, I guess it's North Silver Beach, South Silver Beach. In between that zone, all those bulkheads are right there. Their feet are in the water.
Yep.
I question, how we're going to deal with that going down the track. I mean, that's going to change this access. It's certainly in this, right now, I think there's beach there for the most part. But what do we do down the track? We want to have, we can't get into the other parts at all as a person on the shore.
Yeah.
Changes the island for me.
yeah. So
Let's put it out there. Something to think about.
rising tide. I don't know what we do.
That is a matter of erosion along there, so that's, you know, people used to have a lot of beachfront there before the age of bulkheads, and, you know, but now it's all bulkheaded.
Yeah, there's no one answer. I mean, if we didn't bulkhead Taylor's Island, it'd be gone right now.
Exactly.
I went around, I was doing a boat delivery, something, Camp Quinnipiac, you know, that's got bulkheading all around, and there's beach all the way. I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. How does that manage to stay a beach? Elsewhere, it's gone, you know?
That's why I like the bulge concept, because I think the bulkheads are, you know, self-destruct with wave action coming out from the bottom, and they just get a lot of erosion. Where the bulges break up all that energy, you don't have the same problem.
With that, just to go back to the sort of the Pridwin question, when they came in and asked for that, because they were getting that wave reflection action, would the boulders make a difference in that scenario?
Yeah,
It's not a flat face.
in my opinion, it would, sure. Break up that wave fraction. Well, right now, if we don't give them a permit for this, what's there is gonna fail, and it's gonna start taking the land out, and they'll just keep taking the land out.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's bad, it's gotta be.
The last two houses where they both had an emergency situation because they were losing the backyard and losing a pool and losing a tree in the backyard. So they sandbagged it. And 6 months, those sandbags were ripped apart. Literally ripped apart. It just bought time. It was a temporary measure to sandbag it till you got the bulkhead in place. But those sandbags just got ripped apart with the wave action.
I'll let one of those owners know. It's there, Christmas time.
I think the horse is out of the barn and we have to live with it. All right, I'm okay with it. Matt?
Agreed.
Mark? Tom? Bill?
Good.
James?
I'm all right with it.
6-0.
6-0. Moving along. Okay, now we're getting into the fun. Just Prager dock application. This is a new installation.
It's our first test to see if we stick to the code.
Seriously?
That could be. I think it's pretty straightforward that it doesn't.
Talking about this stuff, or are we gonna buy it?
Is the audience allowed to
Well,
comment?
On its face, it's too long.
Hold on a second, let us, give us a, I think I understand you'd like to make a comment. We need to do our job.
Yeah.
Okay. Pages is this?
26.
All right, so it's L-shaped. It's out into, off of Peconic Avenue, facing Jessup's Neck.
lower
So that's
platform.
Open, goes to the prevailing southwest. The platform, there's no full, is there a floating dock?
No, it's a platform.
Okay, we got one tie-off piling?
Yes, it's the same exact dock as Gary Shear's 4 houses away. That was approved last year.
That was a mistake.
They said they're requesting relief from the section 311.2. I think they also need would need a relief from the following paragraph as well.
Yeah. 5311D? Or
What about the 1.5 times the length?
Oh, that one. Oh, yeah.
Okay, so there's steps here. Each of all there?
There's access stairs.
Yeah.
But not-
50% rule? It's okay.
And the low tide is,
Extend.
And this dock is also smaller in square footage than the same hand dock that was just.
Overall length is 125 feet.
Yes.
That's correct. That right there goes over the code, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like there's plenty of water inshore of that.
It's just about 4 feet at 100 feet.
Yeah, there's just plenty of water, meet code.
We don't have a moratorium in place, but we do have a code, existing code. It's pretty clear. It's pretty clear that this goes beyond what the code allows.
Will be on.
And there's a-
There was
Whatever
a
it's,
lot
there's
of
a-
public comment is on it as well.
I have a long list of objections to this application. And if you don't mind me taking it. And many of them were well stated in the numerous letters of opposition that we received. In fact, even the letter that accompanies the application, I think, lays out some of the reasons why you wouldn't want to approve this dock. It states that it is in contravention of 5311C2, sub 1 and sub 2. It's over 100 feet and goes beyond 4 feet of depth. It is exposed to prevailing winds and wave action and wakes. Requires boat handling in shallow nearshore areas, and such boat maneuvers threaten the environment. I don't believe this dock should ever be built. Just as I don't believe the adjacent dock should have ever been built. It's never been utilized, the adjacent dock. The first time I ever saw a boat there was this past Saturday for a few hours. And as was commented earlier, it was one of the latest boating days around during the summer, and the breeze was out of the east, southeast, so there was no wave action whatsoever. Other than that, I've never seen a boat on the adjacent dock, and for good reason, because of the environmental conditions that exist there. My concern, my fear is that waterfront property owners believe that the addition of a dock is going to enhance the value of their property. And when in reality, certain locales, these structures are useless, they are unattractive, and all they do is increase the property owner's tax base and insurance and costs and liability. And while at the same time, they reduce the economic and quality of life values of their immediate and surrounding neighbors. Some of my more specific objections, violation of 5311D, it's greater than 4 feet in width at its outside end. Its impact by virtue of exposure to wave action will be compounded by the splashboards and the existence of the bulkhead. As Matt pointed out, the water level is, even at low tide, up against the bulkhead, so you get wave action and it bounces off, it resonates off of that bulkhead, and you get a doubling of wave size in the area because of that, and increased erosion. I don't really follow the design and layout of the dock the way it is. It has the vessel exposed to the southwest side with the splashboards on the north side. And the prevailing wind is actually out of the southwest. So I even have a problem with that if I did want to approve it. You've got negative effects on local navigation, swimming, general recreation. Is a danger to swimmers at the adjacent public swim area, which is widely used by that community. It concerns me that we're considering the right to build a structure that will prove of no use and therefore not even be beneficial to one party versus the negative impact that it has on an entire community and on the environment. Some of the letters in opposition refer to the property owner's right to build. And I would say that pursuant to the town's policing powers, that right is limited. And beyond that, there's a federal Court of Appeals case, the 3rd District, it's the New York area, cites property on Long Island, where they've stated that the riparian right is not absolute, and in some cases, the landowner's riparian rights are satisfied with a mooring and the use of a dinghy. I think if there's any, this is the poster child for the dock that shouldn't be built on Shelter Island.
Thank you. Yeah, okay, so let me throw my 2 cents in. I don't think it's an appropriate place to put a dock, because it's not usable on a regular basis, or maybe on any typical day with the exposure and the fetch. So it's virtually unusable. I agree with Bill. I don't see the logic in it. I see more detriment to the community than I see benefit to the property owner.
I'll go. I believe that Mr. Prager has a right to build some kind of dock, but if we're going to keep it to the code, then so be it. But I would also listen to the people who have commented, who have been living there for years adjacent to his property. Sometimes, experience is best. There's nobody who's going to keep a boat on that dock for any length of time, maybe lunchtime or something, but that's it. I grew up right there. I know that the sands disappeared, and I know a lot of other things, and I have thoughts about that. But my mother-in-law, sort of a knee-jerk reaction down at 90 Peconic, because her father had a dock. She built a 100-foot dock, which is completely unusable. That I would, even if I was desperate and couldn't put my boat in the water because of lack of a place to put it, I wouldn't put it there. I would have to bend to what the neighbors are talking about here, and I think they bring up good points. They're not, they haven't manufactured these things. They're making good observations, and from a practical nature, I think I might give them some credence.
Thank you, James. Anybody else want to chime in? Otherwise, I'm going to let the audience
I'll
have a
go.
shot.
I'll go. John?
Yeah.
I do tend to agree that the guy has a right to build the dock. I think that I'm in agreement that it's a bad area, that it would be nice if the guy took the advice of his neighbors, but he's paying the taxes on that property. He has a right to build the dock according to code, right? I think he's beyond code. If he's willing to go back to what the code says, he has a right to that dock. I totally respect the comments that were written. However, some of them were just beyond what we've ever used as a criteria for docks or anything. I mean, swimming, if you want to say that that an area should be open for swimming, that the town owns a 50-foot right of way, and that the neighbor has to keep his front open for swimming, it just doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. If we're gonna start to listen to that kind of mentality, we better take all the docks out. And along with that, take all the stake mooring and pulleys out. Because they're in the way of anybody that wants to swim along the shoreline. The same thing with kayaking. It's the same mentality. It's, we have to balance the usage for all of the different constituents that want to use it. And if somebody wants to build a dock and the only reason he wants to use it is to stop there for lunch on a nice day, there's nothing wrong with that. Our code doesn't address anything to the contrary. That's my 2 cents.
Actually,
Thank you, Al.
Al, I think actually just that point, one, I actually don't agree that somebody has a right, an absolute right to build a dock. I think that's not true, or I don't agree with that. I think in terms of balancing the uses, if somebody wants to build a, what's the typical life of a dock, a 50-year, 30-year asset, so that they can go in and have lunch on a nice day with their boat, versus the ongoing access of the public from an adjacent area. I think actually that balance is quite easy. And it's definitely in favor of public access and not the right of somebody to put that large obstruction right there off their property. I don't think they have a right to the town bottom. I don't think that's true. I think they could have a mooring and get out there with a dinghy. So I look at this application and on its face, on a couple of different points, it's asking for something beyond the code. I say we vote it down and move on. I don't think it actually, we don't have to have a long conversation about it. It's not the code. We vote and that's it.
Mark, you want to make any kind of statement?
I'm just still listening.
Okay. Tom?
Well, I also agree with what Matt said. I believe that the bottomland is owned by the town of Shelter Island, and they're given permission to build and traverse said bottomland with a dock. So therefore, it's not a guaranteed that you have a dock. So I don't agree that it's an automatic, yes, you can have one. But the other thing is, right straight up front, it doesn't meet code. And the last thing is, this is one of those situations where I think that looking into the code and readdressing these issues, like this is a section of beach that shouldn't have docks on it. It's not a good place at all because of the wave action and whatnot. So I would be a no on this right off the bat.
I don't know how significant this is, but I can tell you that probably 20 years ago, when a fellow named Chuck Hamilton was in charge of the DEC, just blanketly prohibited any docks on that shoreline. Pristine shoreline should stay natural, and there shouldn't be any structures built on it. And you won't find any record of that in the town, because at that point, the permit was annulled, or the request was annulled. So we never saw those requests. I know for a fact. I don't know if Jack wants to back me up on it, but he was pretty strict. He wasn't always consistent, but I know he was consistent with that shoreline. That was the opinion of DEC some years ago. Okay, everybody's had their, yeah. Public.
Yes, public. 66 Peconic Avenue. And then, Joe, if everybody can come closer. Sure. I'm going to come up. In fact, that's the photos.
You want the podium moved?
Yeah.
If you can keep your comments as brief as
I
possible.
will be very brief.
Okay.
So Jack said that the proposed dock that you're discussing.
Sorry, can you introduce yourself?
State your name.
I'm Karen Lissiker's mayor. I live at 66 Peconic Avenue.
Gotcha.
And Jack knows this situation very well. He referred to Gary Scher's dock at 68 Peconic Avenue as being just like the dock that you are reviewing now. I just want to show you what happened in my property when Gary put in his dock with a splash wall. This is before this beach I've used for 40 years that I've lived at 66 Peconic Avenue. That beach has, sometimes it would build up to the end of the railings and sometimes there, but that was roughly the level. after, a year plus, like 14 months after Gary's dock went in with the splash wall. And this is what my beach looked like. I lost at least 3, probably 4 vertical feet of sand. The beach became unusable for me because the bottom of the step was up to my shoulders. Worse, and you can see the white section where the old sand was always covering.
Right.
And that became exposed, and worse than me not being able to swim off my own beach was that the bottom of the bulkhead there was exposed, and I started losing land up here. There's a big hole up on top of the bulkhead. And finally, the bottom of the jetty that Jack had repaired 2 years earlier looks like this, because when the storm hit in December, there was nothing anchoring the jetty. The bottom of the jetty had been totally exposed by the erosion. So I think there's a good reason not to permit these kinds of docks along this stretch of water. And, you know, Jim said you have to balance the community interest against the individual interest in somebody having a dock. I agree with that, but you also have to balance the interest of the individual property owners that are directly affected by somebody's desire to have a dock. And it's the board and this committee's job to sort of balance those competing interests. But I mean, there's no question that my property suffered damage in the 1 year.
The general trend along, I think, Jack, you would agree with this, the general trend along Peconic Avenue right there with bulkheads is that they've lost a lot of sand right up against the bulkhead. And it literally goes to the bottom of the bulkhead and it sucks the backyard right underneath the bulkhead out. So that's, you know, that's a reality. You just see that, you know, up and down the block.
I think that's a function of nobody maintaining their jetties. I mean, 20, 50 years ago, that place was jetties, and that's what was there to hold the sand.
Yeah.
So with the increase in hardening structures and the lack of jetties, it's been, I think, the real
And that's added to it. There's no question about that.
I don't disagree with that here, but the fact is that section of beach had been there for a period of 14 months. It just went.
And I'll add my crackpot theory in
When
that
it was intact.
once Shell Beach got extended and the cut was gotten rid of, I think a lot of sand that used to come around and nourish those beaches stopped.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, it's very complex.
These are all the
But
same.
I'm just showing.
Oh, these are all the same then, okay. John must have the after.
It's, you know, the after.
Have the after? These are all befores.
The after is.
Okay,
So
so
the after.
let's pass these to them.
September.
Yeah, we got all the evidence here.
And the summer is when the beach got replenished, probably because of the very summer winds. So the sand would build on us.
Oh, this is before and after, right?
It's all the same. We should spread them out.
Instead of the
One step, that's one.
Yes.
so high that I put that down.
And this is,
How long have you resided there?
43 years.
Discussion. Want to get to the other comments from anybody else?
Thank you for keeping that concise and brief, and we appreciate your
I'm going to
photograph.
try and be brief.
Thank you.
Hi. My name is Dan Hoffman. I reside at 8 Peconic Avenue, right next to the proposed dock. My wife Mara, my 2 kids, we've been there for 32 years. And we have a jetty that I replaced many years ago, but it's in decent shape. And if it got roughed up, I do maintain it. I will maintain it. My neighbors can count on that. I have monitored this stretch of beach for those 32 years, and I own a powerboat. The shoreline in this vicinity of their proposed prayer dock is in crisis visually and physically. I have on several occasions written and spoken to town board members about the depleted beach. The entire stretch of beach is completely gone during high tides. The proposed 125-foot dock with a 20-foot L section at end with a double width 40-foot low level is not only an eyesore, but a safety hazard, and will cause irreparable harm to the shoreline. Swimmers, kayakers, windsurfers will have to go 130 to 140 feet offshore in water over their head and to have unfettered access. The 70 feet of vertical splashboards will block the line of sight to see young swimmers and anyone in distress. These splashboards will alter nature's ability to move sand on shore. In January 2003, a NOAA publication entitled Environmental and Aesthetic Impact of Small Docks and Piers stated structures placed in moving waters have the capability to disrupt the water flow. These modifications in the flow of water may produce scour and erosion or increased deposition of sediment depending on conditions and the structure. Either of these may affect shellfish and wildlife habitats. Summing it up, Mr. Prager mentioned to me that he envisions having a 27-foot boat. The Prager property is 105 feet wide and has 0.38 acres. Not only is the proposed docking not to code on many points, the property is not proportional to a 125-foot dock. The splashboards will reflect waves that bounce off a bare bulkhead shoreline back onto the shore, creating a crazy, unsafe chop and more erosion. Please note that sand was present when 68 Peconic dock was unfortunately approved. On the application, the prayers answered the question, purpose for application, increase accessibility to water for water-dependent activities. The Prager's right to water access does not circumvent our right to have unfettered, safe access that we have enjoyed for generations and generations to come. It does not suppress our property right to ensure our shoreline and homes won't wash away. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Hockman. Christina, I don't know, is it too much to ask to put that shoreline back up on the thing and kind of like to know people who just spoke and where their properties are, relationship to the application?
I'm down by the town landing.
Keep going down.
You gotta go further north. This is the landing.
Okay, go to your left.
66.
That's Hockman there. That's DeReardon.
That's Hockman's where the hand is right now, yes.
Hockman is there.
Right there.
Right, this is Gary Scher, 68. This is me, 66, and the photos I showed you were my steps here. This is there. This is an old photo, though.
That's no longer
Anyway,
there.
so
Beach. Yeah.
my steps here, Gary's steps here, Gary's dock went right here. It's not on this photo, but right here. So very close to so we share this beach, and Gary is at least as concerned as I am about the erosion of the beach. He doesn't dispute what I was presenting to you.
That photo is several years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone?
Before I go,
Huh?
I'll go last.
Oh,
Everybody else is done.
I think so.
I have one more comment. I've witnessed the new dock owner try to dock his boat on that boat lift. He showed up when he had his boat up like a bald eagle for about 2 weeks. He spent about 20 minutes trying to put that boat on those two prongs. And he made several passes, about 7 passes. I was shocked. It was like a mile day. He couldn't get it on there. It was like a very difficult docking for him. It was like a 23-foot whaler. I assume he was an experienced boatman. It's a cross current there that's pretty severe. When you're swimming there, you gotta kind of walk against it. It's not a boat there doesn't just kind of go and dock easily.
Right,
Right,
right.
that's Gary's dock. So that's the boat lift he's referring to. These are my steps. And that's Gary's dock. I mean, I think there's a reason nobody ever docks a boat, the docks that have existed there for years. The only place anybody keeps a boat is in the boat base.
All right. Oh, Jack, yes.
So now what?
So, I know Matt and Tom are new to the board, but I've been expediting the permits here for, since the WMAC started. I mean,
Since you were a lad.
yeah, back when Peter Reach was on the council. But anyway, as far as the 100 feet issue with the code, we've always gone around that because not you guys, you weren't here, but we've discussed extending that because the 100 feet on the outside waters never worked. When James and Al and Mike were here, there was always a discussion, and that's why we were given always leniency to the code on outside waters, because they didn't feel that 100-foot rule really worked on outside waters. We try to really adhere to it on inside waters, within 15 feet maybe. This is an issue of also the precedent. All of a sudden, you're going to stop giving leniency from the code. There's no moratorium in place. So whatever way you guys vote, it's going to go to the town council. This is an issue of water access, public rights. I know James has always been a public rights, activist. We've also discussed lengths. When we changed the code to be between 135 to 150 feet, we never established it. The code was never changed. We always had the conversation about extending the length of docks on outside water. On entering West Neck, there's 5 docks there. They all exceed the code, anywhere from 28 feet to 75 feet over the code on that area. All of them, all 5 exceed the code. The last 2 docks we did this season on the outside waters were the same dock, basically. This is actually a little bit narrower than Sapan's, but cookie cutter with Gary Shears. So, like I said, with the code's the code, with the precedent's the precedent. And like I said, there is no moratorium right now. And this is the best configuration that we can come up to protect the boat from the southwest wind. So if you feel a dock isn't figured properly for protecting from the prevailing southwest wind, that's something that you got to look back at, maybe do a site visit, because this is the best way for it to be configured for protection from the southwest wind. And I'd be willing to answer any questions you guys might have of me.
I'm good. You guys got any questions?
I don't have any questions.
So it's going to be a matter of precedent and or code.
I'd like to make this not a question, but make a statement. We don't need a moratorium in order to go forward and obey the town code.
Correct.
If right here, 4 people decide that we want to obey the town code, then that would be our recommendation.
Correct.
So I think our discretion and capriciousness was used in bending the town code, not in enforcing the town code.
You're good. I'm going to take it one step further. What the position I'm going to take is it's an inappropriate structure that has very little use. And it will have very little use. And it's an obstruction to the public's right to the waterways. If it was on the other side in West Neck Harbor, it's a whole different conversation. It's a useful structure.
Jack, that word precedent, you learn from your mistakes. And we are learning as we go. Each and every day we're alive, but there's documentation there. There are people who live there that are seeing actual change. So the fact that we've bent the rules in the past, if you're not learning from that it is a detriment to the community, then you're just not being wise. I think there's a great awakening here that, pendulums swing back and forth. I think the pendulum is now starting to swing back to the town code, to be much more conservative and to obey the town code. There was a reason why these things were put in place to begin with. And we've seen the detrimental effects by granting these variances over and over again. So I think precedent is great, but that doesn't faze me in the least as a town board member, that somebody's going to say, well, you did it. You know what? We learned from it. We made a mistake. And we did. Every vote that I've made in my 8 years has been up on target? No. I've made mistakes as a voting member. I wish I could retract some of those votes, particularly on some of the docks that we've approved along this area of beach.
Yeah, some of the docks that have that's the same exposure that were built, as Jack mentioned, over near Wade's Beach, where when they finally constructed and tried to be used, they were found to be useless and came back to us for further modifications. Right?
One's before us
Further
tonight.
hardship.
Yeah.
Just in terms of learning,
There
one,
was just one that came back out of the
Okay.
5.
Okay, one.
just in terms of learning, and sort of, I guess it's more of an anecdote, not data, but when I was out there today, among the different things that were washed up, among the large number of literal dock boards that were there, new pressure treated wood washed up all along that shore, lots and lots of them, was a mushroom anchor. A mushroom anchor was washed up right along the bulkhead. I mean, I'm not, I don't install them. I'm not, super familiar with that, but I don't think a mushroom anchor should be washing up on the shore. And if it is, it's a lot of wave action that's bringing it in to get it all the way, literally right up on the bulkhead.
That was probably placed there by some.
You think?
Yeah.
It didn't look like a place.
Mushroom anchors don't just wash.
That's what, I mean, it didn't look like it was just, it didn't look like it was placed.
Around down there.
Yeah.
It's like, I took photos, I can show you. It doesn't, to me, it didn't look like that. It could have been, I know it's like some places you put it up as a design thing. This didn't seem like a design thing. Maybe, maybe it was anchoring the base of some stairs. But it was not, it did not look that way. But then again, I defer to that point, it's possible. It's possible.
All right, I think unless there's more discussion, I think it's time for us to state, each of us to state our positions. Okay?
Where are you?
Yeah.
I don't think that location is appropriate for any kind of dock. That's my position. So I wouldn't recommend that anything be built there.
I agree, same, exactly.
Mark? Same.
I agree, but it's also, it doesn't meet code to begin with. Not only the fact that the dock doesn't belong there, but also the code. It's not the code, so no.
Bill?
No.
James?
No, I agree that Jack made some points that we had, given variances in cases, but I believe it was Matt who said just because you've done it something wrong a number of times doesn't mean you should keep doing it wrong. I mean, and some of those docks are probably a little more usable than this dock here, I would think. But that's an opinion. But I will join John and company and vote no.
6-0, no.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Next. Agenda. Big Graham LLC. Fasten your seatbelt.
Did we get, I didn't see Demer's letter. Demer's letter, you saw it.
Oh, is that what that letter was concerning?
In the correspondence?
It's in here?
Yes, the last, yeah, it was right. Yeah, my reflection was that I saw that in paper.
Jack, the last time this was brought up, help me out. You gave us a conceptual design that lacked the DEC permit too?
Yeah, well, what happened, why this permit stagnated was the fact that they asked me for a wetlands permit for the ramp up the bank. The dock is basically a replacement, and then we added inshore ramp where they had asked me for a wetlands permit. And then the building department said, no, this adheres to the Waterways and the town council. And I didn't need to go through a wetlands application for the ramp, so that's where we kind of stopped. That's why we're back here looking at this permit, because the dock itself, basically a replacement. It was the issue of whether we needed a wetlands permit for the ramp going up the bluff, you know, the whole stuff above mean high water.
Right.
Yeah,
Jack, are we talking about the same dock?
I'm confused.
Jack?
But
This is not a replacement dock. There was never a dock there.
oh, is this the other one? Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
The
I thought
other
this was
dock.
the ramp. Oh, man. I thought this was the next door.
The other dock we've beaten
That's a
up
good
enough.
pitch.
Excuse me. I thought this was already passed. I was back to the ramp set in for the.
Excuse me, Christine, is this letter included here?
He was talking about the ramp set.
Which I was talking about the ramp set.
I can't hear you.
She's saying yes. She's saying it's in the file.
I apologize, guys. This is the dock next door.
Time out. Mark's got a question.
This one.
You're looking at that Demarest letter.
Yeah.
She's the next door neighbor.
Demarest letter's right in the first packet,
Yeah.
right after the agenda and the correspondence.
It's the new proposed dock on the old Bennett property.
They do.
My packet.
Yeah, I don't think I see that one.
There it is.
That's it right there? Okay, yeah, that's the one I have. I just don't see her name on it.
That's on the, yeah, her name's on the second page, the backside of the first page.
Gotcha, yep. So this is the one right here.
Thanks.
That I haven't read it either.
Okay.
All right, so while you're considering this, the latest submission,
I think Pam Demarest did a heck of a fantastic job in analyzing the situation, and I think we should, take a good look at what she's written and take it seriously. Because it's the poster child for why we should be more concerned with the code. Because the number of things that are inconsistent or incomplete that are listed by Pam versus the application did a tremendous amount of homework for us. And the application has quite a number of flaws in relation to our code. And if I could just point out one, if you were to take a look at the insurance liability certificate that was included with it, the insurance certificate right on the left side under, insured, it conflates the Rams Head Inn LLC and Big Ram LLC under the same insurers. Those are two separate LLC corporations, I believe. And I believe one is a commercial property, and I believe the other is a residential property. And on my way over here, I made a brief phone call to an insurance agent and asked if you can have an insurance policy which covers both the commercial LLC and the same policy covering the residential LLC. I was told they didn't believe so. So I think, just starting over there, Ms. Carter seems to be suggesting that these two docks are related to each other. And I don't think they should be. I think if the Rams Head Inn business has a dock, that's one dock. And I think if the Bennett House next door has a dock, it should be a separate dock. No consideration or accommodation should be made to grant proximity to the two and access for the Bennett dock to be able to snug up right to the Rams Head Inn property and facilitate the usage of that.
Jack, are you speaking for the applicant?
Yes.
Okay, hold on a second. You don't have to get up yet. So, just,
But
We looked at this before, and we decided that this was the best place for the dock, because there's gonna be repurposed, that you're using this existing stairs where there's erosion, in that area.
Correct. I know exactly where you're
The
talking.
site meeting, there was the erosion of the stairs, we didn't want to abandon the stairs and put stairs in any other location, so that's why the dock was placed where it was placed. And as far as the insurance question goes, that's gotta be just gotta be a bookkeeping error. I mean, I sort of.
But the application's full of bookkeeping errors. The application's supposed to have the dock staked out. Is the dock staked out?
It was, wasn't it?
It's in the code.
I don't think it is, and I think the properties aren't square, so one dock goes in one direction and one goes in a slightly different direction.
the other thing is, the applicants, there's no person's name here. I think the other application was associated with that area, had Andrew Carter's name attached to the LLC. It's not on here. Now, that's been pretty much signature.
The signature is the lower right-hand corner, dated 19 June last month.
I'm sure the application,
I was just used to seeing it under name.
She's giving me authorization to Jen.
Yeah, I think the two requirements that town board definitely is looking at is, number one, that there is no association with the Ram's Head Inn, that this is a private dock used for private purposes only. That's paramount as far as I'm concerned. And the location, I didn't have a problem with where the existing stairs were going down. That wasn't a problem. I know it comes in close proximity to the old easement area, but it is the 25 feet, I believe, of that easement area. And the other second requirement would be that it meets town code. So, the length and everything else, so that it's a private dock, meets town code, and it's used strictly for that homeowner, but has no relationship with the inn, none whatsoever.
and I'm quite sure we could find examples of where there have been little steeper hills where you've been able to grant access without having to move it over to snug it up onto the property line and not put it in the middle.
But if it meets the setbacks,
I don't think he does.
sorry. You are really good, so. Does it meet the setbacks? That's my question.
Yes. Traditionally, this committee has preferred to see the docks placed midway on the property. Unless there were extenuating circumstances that required it to be moved. The ideal thing is to put it midway with respect, in respect for the neighbors and their vistas of the water. That's a tough location.
What is the distance to the existing dock, the property line?
There's no existing dock on this property.
No,
On the right of way?
the adjacent, on the Ram's Head Inn,
The old Bennett dock, yeah.
the old Bennett dock. How far is Bennett from the property line?
I think it's just,
It's about 23 feet or something.
I think it's,
That just seems really tight to me. I mean, that's my own.
The docks are about 53 feet apart.
And it also handcuffs the two properties together for any future purchases. If somebody else decides to buy the Bennett dock and it goes up for sale, you're cramming him or her all the way into the corner over there for no apparent reason. And you're making it very inconvenient for any of that. And we've always taken the opinion that what we're doing is not for necessarily the current owner, but for future owners also.
Well, like I said, I was asked to place the dock there.
Oh, okay,
The best place. And this, I thought this actually went through you guys already, to be quite honest with you.
Good.
I know we've had the discussion before, and I was kind of curious why I was even here. The dock's 53 feet apart. I think that's, plenty of room. It's 100 feet high water, as the code is. So, I mean, I don't really see what the problem is.
Was there a requirement that easement be extinguished?
Yes. Yeah, but that's in reference to the other dock, yes.
Has the easement been extinguished?
That has nothing to do with this application.
No. BJ has it?
Well, it does because you're putting two docks on one property.
BJ can answer that question.
Yeah, but.
You're putting two
we're
docks,
not-
I'm
We're
sorry.
not asking.
How do you
for
figure that?
What?
No. We're not asking for your weighing in on two docks on one property, because we do not want two docks on one property. If and when there's a recommendation from this committee to approve this, if and when the town board approves this, we will make sure that there are not two docks on one property, or to access to a second dock from one property. That will just be a contingency. It is a contingency right now, on the application that's already been approved, and whatever happens with this, I say will also.
Why are we
have
doing this so
contingency.
prematurely, may I ask?
Doing what prematurely?
Why?
Prematurely.
It is premature because you don't have the easement.
We're not.
The easement has nothing to do with this
It
doc.
has nothing to do,
Mark.
first of all, with your decision making. It really doesn't, I'm sorry.
I get that feeling, yes.
Yeah. And
Thank you.
that's really for the town board and attorney to work out. But that being said, I don't think it's premature, because you can approve something contingent on this, on something happening. Suffolk County was shut down for a year. You could approve the dock and whenever Suffolk County gets around to extinguishing easements on deeds, then it would be a go. There's no reason not to consider it for that purpose. That's why we're saying, just, do you like this dock?
Look,
Does it adhere to code?
Right.
according to this, she's merging this dock with her business.
How can you say that?
Only because you think the insurance says that. We're gonna ask now for clarification on the insurance.
Excuse me?
You were only saying she's merging it because of the insurance rider, but we're gonna ask now for clarification on that insurance rider. So, again, we're gonna make it plain that it should be separate.
I don't think we should cure it after the fact. I think we should cure it before we finish the discussions.
As chairman, I'm gonna back up what BJ just said, that this easement kind of thing, that's not in our purview. That's something for the town board and the town attorney, whatever kind of legal stuff is going on, it's not part of our discussion or review. Our review is, does this meet the code for new docks? That's what our review is. I think when we looked at this initially, I don't know what month that was, do you remember? February?
In the winter.
There was a general consensus. My preference was to have it centered. I think maybe one or two, maybe another person was suggested that, but I think the majority were comfortable with where it was. I think I'd like to take the opportunity to say I think there's merit to that closeness that's going to consolidate the docking situation, that area of the harbor. I think the new dock is pretty much going to disappear. It's going to look like part of the other dock. And I don't think it's going to be terribly, it's going to affect the vista. In fact, it might improve the vista. And it's going to be terrific. When we get that the old dock ripped out of that shoreline, it's going to be a beautiful stretch of shoreline there. I guess that's another, I'm diversing here.
Talking about the old town?
Talking about the Causeway dock?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's going to create a beautiful stretch of shoreline. And I guess that's going to be that'll eventually, that's sort of tied into this to some extent.
Well, it's tied into the other,
The lawsuit was.
it's gone. We won.
It's gone, we won.
Lawsuit was, that dock's gone,
Just gotta get to
yeah.
know.
Oh, I see.
It's not of one week.
So why isn't the dock removed on the causeway?
It's a matter of getting to things.
What?
It's a matter of getting to things, you know.
It's been 2 months since then. And they used it this weekend for boats. They used it for boats and they sent the launch over to the dock to take people off of the dock that they're not supposed to be using and bringing them to the inn.
If you would call that in next time to the
Yes.
day constables?
Yes, that's a great suggestion, BJ. That is,
I would appreciate if someone from the town would remind them that they shouldn't do it. I'm not gonna, go out there and call these things.
tomorrow we'll talk about it with Stephen, and we'll follow up on that
There's a
suggestion.
liability issue there, right? That shouldn't be happening.
Junior
That should be
detective,
a phone call immediately
I'm not
to,
a junior detective.
yeah, but the Bay Constable should come over and that shouldn't happen.
Right, we got some time for some brief comments.
Okay, so Pam has raised her hand first. Let her speak first.
Okay, Pam, can you keep this to 2 or 3 or 4 minutes?
3 minutes.
I certainly can, actually. My main concern is that Mr. Eklund didn't recuse himself from this conversation, and I know that he has a business arrangement with Ms. Carter, so I think that's a fault in this discussion this evening. And I will say that whether or not we're gonna make a provision and say, oh, we'll pass that, and then we'll put that other provision in that they'll have to do the easement thing. The way things stand, by code, there is a dock on the property. It is associated with the property. If you permit a new dock application for another dock on that property, you are violating code. The fact is that this dock does not pass that 1.5 times maximum length either, so it's against code, okay?
It's not.
And the James, I'd rather not talk to you, honestly. I don't think you should be part of the conversation. So let me just say that.
Then certain
And
other
here
people,
is
if that's your feeling, Pam, and you are using the high holy sword of rightness, then other people shouldn't be part of this. I have no financial interest in this property or this dock. None.
You have
Zero.
financial
Zero.
interest with a business relationship with Ms. Carter with the inn, which makes it very
Well,
bit of a
I mean, there are lots of
conflict of
people who
interest.
have,
All right, all right,
Shelter
let's-
Island, Pam.
No,
Make
that's
that-
my contention. That's why
Maybe he
I
should
think you should
recuse
recuse yourself from the
I
conversation.
agree. I think it's probably
That-
best. It does.
Well, then
James,
I will recuse myself if Mark recuses himself.
Yes. I think both of you should, yeah, he's saying he'll recuse himself. If you-
Do I have a financial interest with Mrs. Carter and do you?
No, you have a financial
Personally
interest in
don't.
seeing the inn wiped
What?
off the Ram Island. That's your interest. And it always has been. And you obviously act that way by bringing up silly things about like the insurance. Your agenda has been always that, Mark, and you know it.
Conversation. I'm entitled to my opinion as long as there's no
And I am too.
financial
So
gain.
either we continue
My-
or
There's no financial gain associated with my opinion.
I have no financial gain to be gained by this dock. I have none. Zippo.
All right, so I don't know how this ties in with the new ethics code, but some allegations have been being made, and maybe we need to table this so it goes before the ethics board. If that's where we're at.
I second the motion.
Yeah.
In the meantime, to keep things moving as much as possible or as little as possible, need that staked. And basically, this is unique. We haven't asked you for that for a while, but this is a unique situation. There's going to be commercial activity, within 50 feet of this private dock. So we would really like to see that staked.
Okay, and the other thing that I want to bring up is that insurance policy, first of all, it's expired, and clearly it shows the relationship between the Ramsed Inn LLC and or Big Ram LLC doing business as the Ramsed Inn LLC. It is a commercial insurance policy.
That was brought up, thank you. That was brought up, thank you.
Yep.
Okay,
And you're
BJ,
going-
are you
you're-
going to clarify that for me?
I just said that was
DJ,
brought up,
but-
so we don't have to hear it again.
Okay, but are you going to clarify that for me? Who's going to look into
I'm not gonna
that?
answer. I'm not gonna answer, I'm just saying.
And that's beyond this committee's concern, right? I understand you may think that that's what we're supposed to be looking at, but I'm not looking at that. I'm looking at, we have a town code that says 100-foot maximum, 4 feet of depth. 150%, you're mistaken about that. There is some there is often some question about what does that mean? It means you can't go laterally 90 degrees to the dock more than 50% of the length of the dock. So if it's a 100-foot long dock, you can go 50 foot with an L section. That's what that speaks to. So I just want to clarify that. This does have a lateral component to it, which is the tie-off pilings. And they're probably 25 feet, something like that, 20, 25 feet. So well within 50-foot allowance of a lateral construction. So this dock easily meets the dock code. And these other issues, they're going to have to be decided outside the WMAC. I'm sorry. The public hearing, the town board, I don't know what other kind of legal things are going on. I'm not going there.
So can we move on this, to the town council and keep the process going? I don't see a reason to table this for another month. I mean, the issues, like you just said, that are complicated don't involve you guys. So, I mean, I don't care who's recused or who's not recused. I just don't think that should be the decision of the rest of the board and the two council members. And to keep it forward, because we're not going to make it anywhere by next month. You know what I'm saying? You're tabling it for reasons that don't concern you. So
except for the staking.
There are other
reasons.
There are other speakers still.
Yeah, well, just, sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Mr. Bonstrom has his hand up.
Yeah, I know, but
I got a quick question.
The staking, you're saying the staking is a delay. John.
That means, oh, well, okay, so Jack was wanting to move along. The only way we're going to move along is if Mark and outside of going to the Ethics Council, if they just volunteer to recuse themselves right now, that issue is
I'll
settled.
recuse myself from further discussion. In fact, I feel bad enough. I'm going to just recuse myself from the rest of the meeting. Nice night.
Can we join?
I just had a quick question. There's a 20-foot section at the beginning of the landward edge here. It looks like a diagonal, if you want to call it that, catwalk. Is that considered part of the dock? And is that new construction?
Yeah, this is an existing set of stairs there where there's erosion around the stairs.
Okay.
And this is where I was asked in a meeting with the town to put the dock in a location where the stairs adhere to the setback and make the dock be able to utilize those stairs. Because what the big fear was putting the stairs up a vegetated piece of bank and putting another point of erosion.
Okay. No, my only concern is that it looks like one at the beginning of that 26-foot falls within 25 feet side yard setback. Is that, am I incorrect in saying that, or? You know what I mean? Is that correct? That 26-foot section, the landward edge of that is in fact within 25 feet of the setback? Is that correct? Or am I reading that wrong?
Or is that called the boardwalk and doesn't?
That's what my question is that our purview or is that somebody else's purview? It is within 25
My
feet.
pay grade, dude.
That's a great point.
Just throw that on there and see how we can like that, chew on that for a while. Other than that, it appears to me the code, except for from what I can see, is that one catwalk, if you want to call it a catwalk, you want to call it a section of the dock. It is new construction though.
So there is, that, yeah, right? Is that true, Jack?
Clearly within 25 feet.
Clearly, I think 25 feet.
There's going to be a catwalk constructed to connect the dock with the existing stairs?
Yes, like a walkway, you guys get over to it.
Technically, that's beyond the setback or within.
It's on the property line. It's 10 feet, whatever that is. It's hard to say.
Yeah, it's not
26
25,
feet, so
yeah.
it's, I mean, it's barely.
31 with 26 at an angle. Oh, boy. Yeah, if George was here, he'd figure it out.
Like 10 feet.
Yeah, it's probably 10 feet.
It's less than 25.
Yeah.
So it should be 30, double A's.
John,
Oh, that, oh,
speak.
okay. Look at.
This is not a dock, this is a structure in a regulated zone, setback apply. Setback related to AA zone, so it should be 30 feet.
Yeah, that's right. It's whatever the,
It's either within, it either is a problem for the building code, or it's a problem for the dock code. It's one or the other.
Sure, I'm just gonna have.
You know, the purpose for the 25 feet in the dock code is for navigation of your neighbor. So, I mean, you know.
the setbacks in the dock code is the same as for any other structure in that zone, but a minimum of 25. So if you're in C zone, it still has to be 25.
You're in double A.
If you're in double A, it's 30.
This is 30
Not really
feet.
how it looks though.
This adheres to the 30-foot setback.
Yes.
At the outer edge of the dock, but at the inner edge, depending on whether that's considered dock or catwalk, it doesn't meet the setback. That's my
And if
observation.
it's not dock and it's catwalk, then it's within the building
Then it's building
setback.
departments.
Be, and if it's within building, then it's what, 30 feet?
Yeah.
If it's,
Oh, I don't know what the building code is. No, I don't know what that is.
Right, so
No, but you just created the problem.
I'm good at that.
you got something, Mr. Sudol? Okay, quick. Yeah,
So basically, to us who looked at this application,
I think,
Jan Sudo,
Trudeau,
Jan Sudo,
sorry, go ahead.
I live opposite Amsterdam, so that's why I'm interested in this. You know, to us who looked at this application, this is basically this guy's second dog for Amsterdam, okay? If this was a legitimate dog for Bennett House, it would be in the middle of the property, as is typically the case, okay? But if you look at this, I mean, at the top of that little existing staircase, instead of going to the Bennett House, one can just continue to Amsterdam, okay? And in order to enforce that non-conformance, you would have to post a cop there every day just to enforce it, okay? So, so that's one issue I have. And there was very sharp observation that there is an inland ramp, which is, I don't know why it's there, but that's not the part of the dock, okay? The dock goes from the water end to where it arrives at shore, okay? This ramp, this is zoning code applies, and you can just quickly look at the drawing, and you can see that this ramp is not meeting the setback required in AA zone, which is 30 feet. I mean, the dock is 30 feet from property line, and then you have this ramp going towards Amsterdam.
right.
So that is zoning violation, and I don't see any hardship that applies here, because just as easily the dock could be put in the middle of the property and have in-ground steps, you know, to climb that little bluff there, and then you arrive at the Bennett House. And then it's legitimate dock for the Bennett House, okay? This is this guy's second dock for Amsterdam.
Yeah, so you're pretty much repeating what we've been saying. Jan, I'm going to say one comment to your comment is putting it in the middle, you need something more than steps. You're going to, it's probably more on the order of a ladder because it's so steep. But we hear you.
I think there are dogs, that's one challenging dogs on the island.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so
Our concern, by the way, with that proximity is if I own that new Bennett house, aesthetically, I'd love to have the view, put the dock over on the side. But, you know, to really be honest with you, having the dock in front of the house does two things. Number one, and you can accomplish it, you can get to the dock. It may cost you a little bit more and a little more effort financially to do it, but you get to your dock. But it does the track record has been such that the close proximity to the Ram's Head Inn, that I have only based on past experiences. I'm not so sure, convinced that, even though if they meet all the setbacks, that ideally is it going to be enforced? Who's going to enforce it? Who's going to be there? If a boat comes in, are people going to walk that few feet over and just walk up on the property? It's a
Walk the 50.
or walk the 50, or perhaps walk the 50 feet. But I think there is a concern that based on, listen, the Causeway dock hadn't become an issue, where I saw 2 docks being used as a town board member, I wouldn't worry about this. But that has been violated, and it cost us a hell of a lot of money to get sued by it, to get ourselves out of something that we shouldn't even have been part of. Because once that other dock was permitted, the old Bennett dock was permitted to use for that purpose, that Causeway dock should not have been an issue at all. Regardless of what you were growing underneath the floats out there, it should not have been an issue. A dock should have been taken down immediately. And the fact that it was violated and then we cut the thing, which was not maybe the smartest thing, and I was not in favor of it at the time, but we did it. And we didn't instruct it how it was to be done, but there were mistakes that were made there. But the track record has not been great. And I'm a little concerned, and I'm sympathetic to the people that are saying, you know what, is this an accident ready to happen by having it so close to that property line and that old easement? I mean, really,
When you talk, and also, I think when we talk about enforcement, let's think of how that could work.
Yeah.
A boat pulls up to that dock, it's my friend, and she's gonna have dinner at my inn. What do you do? Do you research history and genealogy? I think that this discussion of enforceability, and yes, it should go in the permit, this is a private dock, it should be used for private purposes. And beyond that, I really wanna know what you think the role of this government could be.
No, it's a legitimate point. No, it's a legitimate point.
How much, resource you want to devote to this?
How much,
Well, we got,
them to build a fence?
we got a zoning issue now.
There is a fence.
Solid fence without a gate? It runs,
Oh, I don't know about that.
I mean, a fence with a gate, it's like you go.
It's not like a fence.
I think the ramp and the new ramp within the setback that's probably, I'm not a zoning guy, but it sounds like a zoning violation.
Yeah,
That needs-
I already sent the email.
So, this is kind of on hold until that gets settled. Or the applicant relocates the dock to the center of her property where normally a residential dock would be, traditionally.
Could the ramp go straight up?
Kim Bonstrop, you got something quick for us? And then, because you'll be wrapping it up.
Oh, wonderful. I'll limit it to 3 issues. One is that the application is not complete because you don't have the joint application. This was a problem on the Ram's Head Inn dock. They didn't give you guys the joint application. We foiled for it, and it was filled with lies. The town board told them they had to go back and redo it. They never did. You don't have those joint applications before you now. So we don't know if permits from other agencies are available. So incomplete, the application is incomplete, the application doesn't satisfy code. Second thing is that the Bennett property is already being used for commercial purposes. They're housing workers in the guest house. So if they're doing that with workers, they're going to use any new Bennett dock for commercial purposes.
Yeah, that's not for the WMAC. I'm sorry. I have to say it.
Well, okay.
Morris meeting.
Here's my third point. When the town board told you on the Ram's Head Inn dock, they said, don't you guys consider zoning? Don't you guys consider use? You know what? It went to the town board. They didn't decide those issues. The other thing the town board did was they hired some chucklehead environmental consultant.
Tim, you gotta tone it down. If you want us to pay attention to it, you gotta tone it down, please.
Okay. They had an environmental consultant who couldn't come to an opinion as to what kind of secra category it was. But if you look at the town code, the first item under Article 60 is hotels, motels, and structures having more than 4 units. That's type 1. And the town granted that permit. So if you guys decide you're going to kick stuff over to the town board, just be aware that this town board is going to flaunt the law. That's all I've got.
Thank you, Kim.
Much appreciated.
Okay. Don, you had your chance. You got,
Can I have one more? One more?
let's go. No.
And it's good. No.
Because I want to address to
I mean,
teachers, are
with all due respect, Jan, the comments you made, we've already gone over. So I feel like we're just going over hashing over the same thing over and over again. We've got a dock application for a dock that meets the code requirements. It meets the setbacks, it meets the length, it meets the width. But there is an issue with this ramp. It's a zoning issue. That's not our thing. But I think it needs to be, normally the town would address something like that. And the thing with the easement, that's some legal thing. That's not a WMAC thing, right? So it needs to be staked before we can take a vote. And that's probably all that we need as the WMAC to take a vote on this.
Valid insurance policy.
And the clear insurance policy, okay?
A question real quick on that ramp section. Does that mean that falls under a different committee?
Yep.
So then that ramp section should really not even be on our application, or is that not true?
We'll have clarity on that.
That's, I got a lot of questions about just that little piece there.
We try to stop at the mean high water.
That's what I thought.
I mean, on the length and depth of docks, it does talk about including ramps as a portion of that. I don't know whether that's just a ramp from a stationary portion of a dock, a catwalk down to a float, or whether that's, how you interpret ramp. But if we're talking about ramps, well, I mean, how you interpret ramp.
Usually that wording goes toward a dock that's built on the beach and there's a ramp down to the shoreline.
Okay.
That's what that ramp would typically be referring to.
Okay.
Sean, the staking, I'm not sure we should ask for stake yet until we have the ramp question answered, right? Because it might be a waste of time and effort.
Could be.
And money for the applicant. So let's work on this one little piece, especially in the insurance and a few other little things. But the ramp, in terms of the staking, I think maybe we could always call Jack and tell him.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Good point.
Just so we all have a general understanding. I think we've kind of reached that point.
It's good sequence.
All right, I'm gonna move on. Has anybody got to go? It's late. Been here for 2.5 hours. What do we got left?
In Italy, what time is it out?
It's like 1:45.
1:45.
I gotta get up in a few minutes, guys. I'm gonna say goodbye.
Next one's pretty easy.
What's the next one, Elioff?
What happens if we just say we're done for the night? Is that legal or illegal?
No, it's on the agenda, but you're okay. You're okay, yeah.
To keep going or stay?
No. If you feel that,
Check what is the public hearing.
what was it?
the public hearing is for any of these last 4.
Set the public hearing.
Yeah, the public hearing is next week.
Elliot,
For this one,
yeah, so we have,
this one we have to cover that.
Which one?
but the other.
Elioff, and then Hogan, Conklin, and Branson, we can,
Yeah, the rest.
Why, just because, why Elioff and not the others?
Because the public hearing is set 3 weeks in advance.
Yes.
2 weeks ago, it was set for 8 weeks.
yeah, so we're gonna hear it.
will happen.
Okay.
We would have to enter the applicant for another 3 weeks.
Yeah. That's a good, let's do that one and then call it quits.
Elioff?
Yeah.
We can knock token out too, but that's,
Whatever you feel, John.
huh?
Let's get this, and that's a good, great point, Christina. Thank you.
Let's get through this one first.
Yep, yep. All right, Elioff.
Because unfortunately, I have issues with Elioff.
I had a question, Jack. I think this is the one. Maybe this is a stupid question, but I thought I saw on the application that the structure going out into the water is described as a catwalk and not a dock. Is there a reason for that? Okay. I didn't know if there was some significance to that I was missing. All right, so it's a straight out dock. What's the length?
92 feet from mean high water. It's 55 and a half feet mean low water to mean low water, which is measured to see if it complies with 53-11 C1, greater than 15% from the opposite shoreline. So 15% of that distance from mean low water, that distance is 250 feet, 15% would be 37 and a half feet. But this dock is 55 and a half feet on that measurement, which traditionally is not the way we would measure it, but which would only be worse.
Can you zoom in, Christina, and then draw a make-believe dock? Draw a Christina dock?
Phil, speak clearly, you're stating right now that you would.
Build us a Christina dock.
That component.
Yeah, it's 55 and a half.
It's obstructing the channel, basically.
92?
92 feet?
Whoa.
That water is pretty deep up in there. It drops right off from the beach.
Yeah, this is way out of the channel.
Yeah.
The float's just in 2.5, required 2.5. Like I said, this, if you look at the blue water in that picture, it's completely out of channel. I don't think Christina's line is accurate.
It says right here, 92 feet.
Can you zoom in a little?
In general, do you think that's not accurate? 'Cause I've used it to measure my dock and it's nuts on.
I mean, I might have started.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. The starting point, is that accurate?
Sorry.
It's a guess. She's too far up, that's even worse.
No, she started too far out.
Oh, okay.
That's what I'm saying. If you look at the diagram, the dock is, like 20 feet of it, it's in the marsh. And we kept that under the code and we just got the float in 2.5, so we don't have to talk about chocks or anything like that.
We do have,
The 15%.
right,
15% across the creek.
What's the 15% measurement?
so basically what we have traditionally used is mean high water to mean high water. But,
Oh, mean low to mean low.
well, mean low to mean, so you take the mean low to mean low, it's 250 feet. 15% of that is 37 and a half feet. This dock measures in that area 55 and a half feet. So we're over, 18 feet over, 50% over.
To shorten this up,
And you're in shallow water.
shorten this up and not have a float.
The stop is pretty minimal, and I think it fits into the area, and it doesn't interfere with navigation, you know what I'm saying? If you look at that, we're not even close to the canal, in the middle of the canal. You know, it's deep water through there, like I said, I think the dock as short as possible, even the 2.5 feet rule. We're not hampering anybody's navigation.
But it's getting a variance from the code. I think there's a general consensus that we want to try and get away from that.
That was the decision we made.
You said it's 50%, is that what the numbers you said?
50% over, it's 55 and a half feet, should be 37 and a half feet. So it's 18 feet over.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to find the depth.
Is it page 5 of 9 shows it?
Okay, I found it.
Yeah.
It's always on the same scale.
Yeah. It's on larger pieces of property, he has, he's got 1,000 feet of property. Thanks.
So the hydrographic doesn't have the document imposed? You say on top of it?
Superimposed.
Huh?
Superimposed, right?
Superimposed.
On page 5, it has the numbers, and it'll show kind of like how we're at the channel.
Looks like the inside edge is about 2.6 feet and the outside is 3.1 feet. Page 5 of 9. Good.
That's mixed up. If you took the float out, what's the depth then? What's the length?
2.6.
Float's 20 feet long?
The float's on the L.
Yeah.
Minimize the length of the structure, like I said, we put it on an L just to get it, squish it into that 2.5. 2.5 contour on the map. And we just scooch behind, beyond.
Christine, that line that you have on there, is that representation of the length? Or is that,
92
what's that?
92 feet.
That's the overall length.
That does represent there?
Yeah, assuming the starting point is where.
And there's an L off of that, and
And the dock one goes 50 feet past mean low water. So, I mean, this is a pretty minimal structure.
It looks large compared to what's in the neighborhood there. That's my only observation on
the
that.
boat is gonna lay on the outside of the float. It does kind of stick out as the biggest one.
Yeah, I mean, that's my observation there, yeah.
The docks on the right side of the photo are of equal length, but the ones on the top of the are.
Those are all non-conforming. None of those floats are in 2.5 feet of water.
I think we started off the meeting saying that we need to do a better job of sticking to the code, so I think that's where I'm going to. Another discussion?
You know, it's, so at other times, we've had docks that we've pushed to give a variance on because they were no longer than the docks around them, even though they were non-conforming. And this one, we've got a non-conforming that sticks way out beyond all the other docks. It's non-conforming. It's just, it's got all, it makes two wrongs. The bottom line is, I agree, we spent a lot of time talking about how we're going to adhere to the code. I think I'm going to stick with the code, and I'd be a no on this.
Yeah, unfortunately, not every location is suitable for a dock, according to how our code is written. I can't help that. I would have to say no. You guys ready to? Matt?
No.
Mark?
No, no, also because the code, and like you said, some areas just can't have a dock there because the code says you can't. In other cases, you know, it's one of those things where an analyzation of harbors and creeks would help us in situations like this. But I'm a no on this one.
5-0.
Bill?
No.
If they come back for my talk with you. Just asking.
Yeah, if it's, what's 37 and a half feet?
Yeah, that's it.
37 and a half feet from where? Low tide?
No, 37 and a half feet from mean high water.
Low water.
Well, so that's where it's funky, because if we were going to adhere to the way the code does it, we wouldn't be looking at 15%, you wouldn't be looking at the 55 feet from mean low water to mean low water. We'd be looking at the length from mean high water. It's a quirk in the code.
Right.
Saying that we're going to consider mean low water to mean low water, the 55-foot distance is being more liberal in the code. And that's, and it's still, we'd be granting
18 feet, did you say, or something?
18 feet, yeah, a 15% extension over what the code.
If you shorten that, Christina, by 18 feet, what's the depth of water that you go into?
Oh, I can tell.
Oh, you can't tell.
Is that the width of the float? What's the width of the float?
No, the float's only 6 feet. I mean, you can guesstimate. If you go
So 3 floats.
be in,
Jack can, he's got his
Say,
room.
give me the number and tell me where you measured it from. I mean, the high tide, low tide, where are you pulling it from? And where are you getting the measurement from across the creek?
from your diagram on page,
But the application doesn't show the low water mark on the other side. You have to kind of guess, you have to guess at it.
it's about, no,
They say there's 250,
it
right?
says 250 feet from mean low water to mean low water on the application.
Okay?
Gotta find the page again. Where is it?
So it's on the same. Yeah, 5th page, same with the depths. It says there's a line saying 255 feet to opposite shoreline. It looks like it's marked mean low water. This is on the
Sheet 5 of 9.
Yeah, I know. There's like 3 different sets in there.
So you're trying to say that I can only go 37.5 feet past mean low water?
Yeah.
I got a hydrographic survey of Cockles Harbor. I will try. Something's not adding up for me. On the site plan, page 5 of 10, shows the adjoining dock as being longer than the applied for dock, but in that Google Earth view, adjoining docks were shorter. I'm saying, it's not adding up.
5'10", where's that? I got a 5'9".
Yeah, so you're looking at,
This one here, it's the same place.
This shows them, I mean, if you tried the line from existing dock to existing dock, this goes up beyond.
I'm sorry, I'm looking at Rams Head LLC. Got all mixed up here. Jesus Christmas.
Searching for trouble.
Do we want to table this one? Do we get clarity on the distance? Because that seems like the big.
well, I don't know what the lack of clarity is. The code says 15% of the distance from mean low water to mean low water. What you provided us, site plan, page 5 of 9, shows that it's 250 feet from mean low water as a starting point to the opposite shoreline. I don't know whether you're going to mean low water or mean high water, but
It looks like it's originates at that mean low water mark.
yeah, if you're going to mean low water on the other side, it's okay. If you're going to mean high water, then you have even a shorter distance because it's incorrect. So 15% rule is 15% of 250, which is 37 and a half feet. You have a measurement on this site plan showing mean low water, 55 feet from mean low water to the outward end of the dock. So that's 18 feet longer than what the code permits. And would probably put it in line with the other docks.
Yeah. Is it right where that end of the 40-foot catwalk?
Well, that's why I asked if we could draw it in, just to look at the comparison with the neighboring docks to see how it stacks up. Subtract the 18 feet off of that, the 92 feet, what are you going back to?
Which would, so it's not going to get by the DEC, it would get by us because we don't have a minimum depth in our code, which I hopefully we will put in our code.
It looks like it being about 1.5 feet.
Discussion or vote? Vote. So I have to say no. Beyond what the code allows. Matt?
No.
Art? Tom?
No.
Bill?
No.
That's a tough 5-0. Want to just do Tolkien and call it quits?
8 o'clock?
Tolkien's really quick. Anybody have anything against dredging? He just wants to dredge around his bulkhead.
It's a small dredge project right across the island. It's just showing in that one corner.
I didn't have any issue with Tolkien.
No brainer.
Move around to Silver Beach.
I'm yes on Tolkien. Matt? Mark?
Just maintenance dredging, I guess, right? Just inside that bulkhead? Yeah, I'm okay with that.
And it's kind of good timing with the county. Bill?
As long as it hasn't been done.
I'm good.
All right, that's it.
Got to
5-0.
do something for Jack.
So Hogan and Branson, Kurt, we're gonna put on the next one, right?
Yep.
We're okay with that, Christina?
Is that gonna foul up your construction schedule?
Of course. All right, guys, let's take it.
You too, Jack.
Good job.
Everybody, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Wasn't easy.
Yes, okay. For sure, John.